Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 3rd, 2025 Farmington Hills City Council meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. The first item is Pledge of Allegiance, and this evening we have the special treat of we are going to be led in the pledge by Lincoln of Scout Troop 179. So if you would please come forward.
Lincoln. Lincoln.
Go ahead, Mom. Go take the photo.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lincoln. He is here working on one of his badges and is required to observe this evening's city council meeting and hear about people having different points of view and yet being civil in a community. So looking forward to having you here tonight. Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Aldred.
Here.
Bolaware. Here. Bridges.
Here.
Bruce.
Here.
Dwyer.
Here.
Knoll. Here. And Mayor Rich.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, item 1, approval of the regular session meeting agenda. Is there a motion? Mr. Bridges.
Madam Mayor, I move the council approve the agenda as published.
We have a motion. Is there support? Motion and support. This is a regular vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, carries unanimously. Item 2, proclamation recognizing Tom Negoti. And as Mr. Bridges' two sons both played football under coach, we've asked him to read this proclamation tonight.
Actually, basketball.
Oh,
They play football under Todd Schultz.
Oops, my error.
Basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah, but Tom was also a football coach too, in a sense. I got you. Anyway, I wanted to recognize Tom Negoti, proclamation recognizing Tom Negoti. Whereas Tom Negoti has dedicated an extraordinary 43 years to coaching in Farmington Public Schools, leading not only boys basketball, but also coaching girls basketball, track and field and football. And whereas he served as a teacher in Farmington Public Schools for 37 years, bringing the same dedication to the classroom that he did to the court and the field. And whereas during the 55-year coaching career, working with athletes from junior high to collegiate level, Coach Negoti has impacted well over 1,000 students, instilling in them the values of discipline, teamwork, and perseverance. Whereas beyond his coaching duties, his unwavering commitment to youth development, community engagement has positively impacted students and families in our city, including through founding programs such as Athletes Against Drugs in Farmington Public Schools. And whereas in recognition of his outstanding contribution to high school basketball and the broader community, Coach Negoti was recently inducted into the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan Hall of Fame. And whereas Coach Negotian's wife, Kathy, has continued to support his passion through more than 50 years of marriage, and his sons, Ryan and Todd, carry on their father's legacy, following his footsteps as varsity coaches. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Teresa Rich, the mayor of the city of Farmington Hills, on behalf of the city council, do hereby honor Tom Negoti for the profound impact he has had on the Farmington Hills community and beyond, and thank him for his lifelong commitment to shaping youth and strengthening our community. Mr. Negoti.
Coach, we're going to, but you're still getting dragged to the podium, sorry.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. And if you want to make some comments, you can at the podium there. If you get a few comments, you can, okay? You're welcome, sir. Okay. I just want to say that Coach Negoti coached my two boys, Dr. Michael Chad Bridges and Dr. Chauncey Aaron Bridges. And he played a very important part in their development. And I want just to thank you for your leadership and your ability to desire to be a great coach in Farmington Public Schools. Thank you for that.
As I've gone through this period of receiving a lot of these honors, there's one word that's come to my mind, and I'd like to share it with you, is unimaginable. It's just beyond unimaginable that this would happen to you. I mean, you don't get into the profession of working with kids or coaching thinking about awards. Your award is that you work with young people and get to mold them into being good adults. I haven't made a jump shot in maybe 60 years, so everything I've accomplished has been on the wings of those kids that have played for me, from the McDonald's All-American to the last kid on the bench. Them and their parents who have been more than dedicated to me throughout my career at every level. And I'd like to thank the Commission of Farmington Hills for giving me this recognition. And I'd like to thank my grandkids for being here tonight, because my wife has made me coach my grandson now, too. So, but thank you very much. It's very humbling to be here and have this honor. And on behalf of all the young men and women that have participated with me in athletics, thank you again.
So, Coach, if you could please come up here with your family, and Mr. Bridges, do you want to go down for the photo? You'd have had them first, I know. That's awesome. You might be taller than him by the end of the meeting. Great, thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you, Coach. We also have a proclamation recognizing March 2025 as Women's History Month, and it will be read by Council Member Valerie Null.
Whereas throughout history, extraordinary women of every race, class, ethnicity, and socio-economic background have made significant contributions to our nation in countless ways, both recorded and unrecorded. And whereas through leadership, ingenuity, and hard work, generations of women have made significant contributions in science, medicine, technology, business, politics, entrepreneurship, arts and culture, and the military. And whereas women worked to secure their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity and played vital roles in the abolitionist, emancipation, civil rights, and industrial labor movements as they worked to create a more just and fair society for all. And whereas women play critical economic, culture, and social roles in our society and constitute a significant portion of the labor force, working both inside and outside the home. And whereas, as we venture into the future, gender will be no obstacle to what women can accomplish as they open new doors, embrace innovative ideas, and continue to create a profound and positive impact on our society and community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Teresa Rich, Mayor of the City of Farmington Hills, on behalf of the City Council, does hereby proclaim March 2025 as Women's History Month in Farmington Hills, and call upon our citizens, private and public institutions, businesses, and schools to celebrate the history and achievements of the countless women who have helped to promote a more equitable society and have created possibilities for generations of women to come. And this is going to be received by 3 of the women directors that we have here in the city of Farmington Hills. We've got Charmaine, Head of Community Development, Vicki, Head of Communications, and Michelle, Head of Purchasing. And so thank you.
photo for this, I'm asking the council members Nolan Bolaware and Assistant City Manager Mondora and Clerk Lindahl to come down with me for the photo, please.
Sorry, women only.
Okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
but you can stand behind us if you want.
Men in the back.
I guess. I don't think.
And as long as we're recognizing Women's History Month, I'd be remiss in not acknowledging former Mayor Vicki Barnett is in chambers with us this evening. Good evening. That then takes us to announcements, presentations from city boards, commissions, and public officials. We first have the presentation of the Historic District Commission 2024 Annual Report, please. Good evening.
Just getting things pulled up here. We have the secretary from the Historic District Commission here to do a brief presentation for you this evening. Let's see. Arrows.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Alec Thompson. I am the recording secretary for the Historic District Commission, and I drew the short straw to be on before council. So actually, I'm honored to be here and excited. It's my first time doing this for the board. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what we've done this year and our objectives moving into the next year, and happy to spend time if there's any other questions to come with it. On this slide here, we have the objectives from 2024 and 25. They're a carryover on some of those. We're going to continue to work on that. The big things we wanted to highlight was the work that had been going on at the Spicer House. I'm sure you're aware of the extensive renovations that have been done and preservation specifically on the roof, and we continue to work with the city on that. Cemetery preservation, I'm going to highlight a little bit later on, but we've tackled quite a bit of work at the West Cemetery at Halstead and also at Utley or East over near Middle Belt. And then also the reconnaissance survey of 2022 has asked us to follow up with our existing properties to engage them and also to do continuous survey of new and potential properties to add into that, and we continue to do that as well. And in 2025, I'm sorry, I skipped over, the Assistance and Development of Sarah Fisher site continues to be a historical property that's in our district, and obviously as development there takes on different phases, HDC continues to work and adapt those plans and certificate of appropriateness to enhance that development. And in 2025, we've added educational and social programs and preservation workshop opportunities for the commission. We're trying to respond to greater outreach and promotion of what the HTC is and how it works, and we're going to be developing a series of programs and engagements, hopefully throughout the community. We meet regularly, right, once a month, and most of what the work we do there comes to us through what are called COAs, or Certificate of Appropriateness. Property owners are asking to make modifications or changes to their property, and it's our job to review and approve those as they come in, city-owned or otherwise. These are just a few of the things that we have, right, that you might recognize. There's historic properties throughout. Starting at the top left, the James Kane House, right, garage door replacement, very exciting. And then the bottom left, the Lawrence Simmons House was also a fence upgrade. It was a commercial property abutment, right, that was for a neighbor situation. And the windows, the infamous Long Ranger House, which now looks much different without the trees around it. Kirby White, we approved a restoration of shutters to restore its original appearance. Should be going into that. And then the Blacksmith House, Clarenceville Blacksmith House, had a partial roof replacement to bring it along as well. The one I mentioned in the beginning was the Spicer House, right? You have been by there and looked at the old house. You can see in the bottom left there. at Cedar Shake was in very rough condition and needed to be replaced. And it requires a considerable amount of maintenance to maintain a Cedar Shake roof. And we've agreed on and replaced, if you've been over there, a synthetic roof that looks very much like the Cedar Shake replacement, would be longer lasting and be a lower cost and a much easier maintenance structure. The gutters on that building are being restored as well. There are gutters that are being preserved in that, and you may have noticed the work done on the hangars and the valleys as well. So it's coming along nicely. There'll be continued work to be done there. We'll have more of that in 2025, but preserving the roof on that was an important step for the structure overall. The Sarah Fisher home, I think we're familiar with that piece of property and development. We have had that come before us a couple different times, and we've approved different COA adjustments on that. At this stage, you'll see the some preservation of the chapel. We've approved a modification of that as well. We're waiting for final renderings as we finalize all of that, but that still maintains a piece that comes before us on a regular basis. And then the last big one I highlight is cemetery preservation. That's a continuous one that the board itself, the commission I should say, spends a great deal of time. Volunteers, we work with Troop 179, has volunteered out there quite a bit, and we've had community groups out there. There are really multiple parts to this. Some are simply cleaning and resetting stones. Some have been digital preservation work. My classes, I teach at Schoolcraft College, have been working to digitize the records that are there, and Matt Malone here in the city has been gracious enough to offer support so we can create a resource for people to access and do that as well. So we've done that for both west and east. There's still more work to be done. Our concentration now is primarily on the east cemetery, and I think you'll see quite an improvement over the summer as well. I want to highlight the last one particular house here, Nehemiah Hoyt House, which is over on Howard Road. It's one of our older properties. It had an issue with, you can see, is that tree falling into the house and created a breach in the roof, which created some threatening internal damage to that. That has been now tarped and repaired, and we've been working with the city and the property owner to secure that, so it's now enclosed and moving forward to have basically court-ordered fixes done to that property to preserve it for future owner or sale at some point so it can retain its integrity at this stage as well. And that's what I have for you this evening, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson, questions, comments, anything from council? Nope.
Fantastic.
I would say, Ms. Nall, since you are liaison.
I've seen her.
No, I just want to say thank you. They're a very active committee, and they're doing great work preserving our historic homes, helping with that effort and working with the homeowners diligently. And thank you for all your efforts with the Sarah Fisher. I know that's been a long process for everyone involved at the city. And of course, thank you for all the work on the cemeteries and preserving those and getting your Schoolcraft College students involved, you know, just going above and beyond. It's very appreciated.
We've enjoyed it, and we appreciate everyone who's come out to work on the cemetery. There's a lot of community volunteers, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I believe we have an elected official who would like to come and address us, Angie Smith from the Farmington School Board.
Madam Mayor, we need a motion to accept the report.
Yes,
No.
please.
No, it's on the consent agenda.
Yes, very good. I see the
I'm sorry.
recommendation, and that sounds. Uh-oh. One moment. Actually, I think we do need to do a motion, so thank
I
you.
can move.
Motion? Okay.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I move to accept the Historic District Commission 2024 annual report.
Support. Okay, we have a motion and support. This is a regular vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, carries. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Deborah Oz tonight. I am Dorothy's granddaughter. I flew in from Kansas with no GPS. I'm sorry that Toto, which is no longer with us, Toto has a granddaughter named Coco. So I lost her in between here and Canton. You know, it's hard to maneuver a basket in the wind since our FAA is all messed up, so I flew in. So with that being said, I am the granddaughter of Dorothy, wink, wink, and of the great Oz. I inherited the property in Kansas, and so this is March Reading Month. And my sister, Angie Smith, wink, wink, on Farmington Public Schools, wants to thank each and every one of you for signing up to read to our munchkins in Farmington Public Schools. Reading Month is one of my favorite things because, as you see, I dress up in costume. I don't wear the ruby red slippers, I wear the red bottoms. Okay? So at the end of the day, oh yeah, the red ones.
But of course.
But I do this because it brings comprehension back to our students. So inside the basket, Toto is not in there and neither is Coco. Coco's at home. You all have a book so that when you go to the schools, you have your own personal book with a message in there from me, thanking you for doing this year. And I would go to Farmington, but I don't know when their meetings are. So I want to thank each and every one of you because all of you reached out some sort of way to say thank you. I know Mr. Aldred wants to do this so bad. I have plenty of costumes. My daughter said,
yeah.
my daughter said, "Are you the only one dressing like this tonight?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "You getting arrested." So I was going to wear the lion, but I chose not to. But thank you all. And you will see me the month of March dressed. So if you see me, just look straight ahead. Just don't pay any mind. I will be in costume for the month of March. And thank you again for all of you reaching out, reading to all of our kids. I know Mayor Rich and all of you have made it your business to come and read. I know some of the books are, you know, very young for a lot of kids, but you will have K through 5, and even the 5th graders, they don't care what you read, just knowing that you're there. So thank you again. So I gotta fly back home, and but thank you, and thank you for seeing former Mayor Vicki Barnett here. So thank you all so much, and I can take my basket back. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, for continuing to bring joy in our community. That then takes us to correspondence. Any council members have correspondence that they would like to share? Yes, Ms. Knoll.
Sure. I had correspondence regarding chicken coops, and so I forwarded it on to the city manager with a request that we take a look at surrounding cities and do a comparison of ordinances between the kind of the western Oakland County cities or Troy or other cities similar in nature to Farmington Hills.
Anyone else? I had correspondence regarding offerings for our neurodivergent community, and I forwarded that along to the city manager so we could have some conversation about making sure that we are a totally inclusive community. Okay, that then takes us to the consent agenda. All items listed. Put my book down. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine, administrative, or non-controversial by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the items may be removed from the consent agenda for consideration. They will be read, by the Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Dwyer. And before you do that, just a reminder, we have 2 public hearings tonight and public comment. For those of you who would like to participate in the public hearings or in public comment, please do fill out a blue card. And if you don't list what you are here to talk about, I will assume that it is just general public comment. So there is the opportunity to put your topic on these. If you filled out a card and you did not put a topic, and you need to, come on up and please retrieve your card.
We should be good.
Okay, we're good? All right. So then there we go. All right, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The consent agenda items, number 7, recommended approval of use of city facilities policy amendments. Number 8, recommended approval of award of proposal for the development of city branding guidelines to Destination by Design in the amount of $70,000. Number 9, recommend approval of City Council study session meeting minutes of February 24th, 2025. And number 10, recommend approval of City Council regular session meeting minutes of February 24th, 2025.
Okay,
Concludes.
thank you, sir. Is there, Mr. Bridges?
I have a motion. Mayor, I'd like to recommend council approval for consent agenda items 7 and 8.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion for approval of items 7 and 8. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, support. And this is a roll call vote.
Council members Bolaware,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Dwyer,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Aldred,
Yes.
and Mayor Rich.
Yes.
Thank you.
And is there a motion for 9 and 10?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve items 9 and 10 on the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, we have motion and support. This is also a roll call vote, please.
Council members Bridges,
Abstain.
Bruce,
Yes.
Dwyer,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Aldred,
Yes.
Bolaware,
Yes.
and Mayor Rich.
Yes.
Thank you.
This then takes us to council member comments and announcements. Any, Mr. Aldred?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to make a comment this evening, just drawing attention to what we do in this city with regards to summer camps. I think we want to just highlight just what a great job we do from our Special Services Department organizing summer camps, and maybe residents aren't aware that last year we actually offered 277 summer camps in Farmington Hills. Let me say that again, 277, which is 5 times more than any of our neighboring cities. And according to the feedback on that, 91% of families who attended would recommend a Farmington Hills summer camp to a friend. That's an extremely high number. And rather than being a burden to our taxpayers, it's actually revenue generating for our city, and 28% of that revenue comes from outside of our city. So I want to just highlight what a great job that Special Services does in putting on all those events, those summer camps, and encourage parents out there that actually sign-up started in January. So if you haven't signed up already, better get on with that because they start filling up. And I also just want to make the comment that I really believe that, well, one thing as well, there's also a hiring events, perhaps the city manager will touch on that, hiring events, March 11th and March 17th for seasonal work associated with that and other aspects of the city, which is obviously a great opportunity for part-time work. I just want to highlight just how important I think these kind of services are. Special services we put on, summer camps, other things that we do. It includes what we do at the Costic in terms of services for seniors. I really believe these are things that actually make Farmington Hills a place where people want to live. And we need to continue to support those things. We as City Council need to continue to invest in things such as parks and recreation, facilities within our parks, because that's the kind of thing that makes Farmington Hills a place that people want to live, and that's the reason why people will bring their businesses here. It's the reason why people will open their restaurants here, is because it's a place where I actually think recreation as a highlight of what we can if you like, it's a jewel of what we do as a city that should continue to be highlighted and promoted and differentiate us from the cities that are around. So I just want to, again, a real thanks to what we do as a city, especially in terms of special services for putting those camps on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have a couple. Ramadan Mubarak for those who are observing Ramadan. We have a couple of events coming up. Walk the Hawk tomorrow at noon on the 3rd floor of the Hawk. Purpose of this is anybody who wants to come and share a point of view. I'll be there, and we often get a council member or two to come join us. And just as a point of interest, in the February Walk the Hawk, Ken Snodgrass joined us, and next thing you know, he was appointed to one of our commissions at our last meeting. So be careful what you ask for. But we look forward to seeing people tomorrow at noon. And finally, the Greater Farmington Chamber of Commerce is hosting State of the Cities. We're trying a new format this year. It will be in the evening, and it's free. And so April 1st, 7 p.m. at the Hawk, and they are sponsoring a business expo beforehand. I think that begins at from 4:30 to 6:30 for those interested. So hope to see folks there. So mark your calendars, April 1st. And the presenters will be the Chancellor of OCC, the Superintendent for Farmington Schools, Mayor of Farmington, and me. So look forward to seeing you there. And that then takes us to the City Manager update, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, City Council. The weather's getting warmer, at least I think it is, and at least we're praying for it. So with that comes people anxious to get outside and pick their yards up and trim bushes and get things ready for spring. I just wanted to remind everyone in the city that our yard waste pickup does not resume until the first full week in April, so that will be April 7th. So that would be your regularly scheduled pickup day for April 7th for your yard waste pickup. We ask that, as anxious as people are to get out and enjoy the warmer weather, we ask that you not put your yard waste at the curb prior to that time. Kind of makes a mess if it gets blown away, and sometimes we get a snowstorm in late March, early April too. So could confuse could impact our snowplow operating as well. Councilmember Aldred touched on our special services hiring event. Thank you for that. You kind of stole my thunder. And we are indeed looking for Farmington Hills' youngest, brightest, and best. We have a lot of positions to fill, over 200 positions for seasonal opportunities at our Special Services Department and Public Services. So if you're interested in Public Works operations, this is a good opportunity for young folks to come out, or anybody to come out that's looking for a job. We have two hiring events. One is at the Hawk at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, March 11th, and then the other one is again at the Hawk on March 17th. I'm sorry. The Hawk at 5 p.m. on, March 11th, and again on March 17th. Both of them are at 5 p.m. That was a bit confusing. And if you have any questions about that, you can certainly call the city manager's office for additional information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And that then takes us to item 5, a public hearing. So this is public hearing in consideration of planned unit development 2, 2024, including site plan 56-8-2024 Mulberry Park and the Tabernacle multifamily housing located on 13 Mile Road, west of Middle Belt Road. Good evening.
Good evening. Charmaine Kettler-Schmaltz here to introduce the item PUD number 2 of 2024 and concurrent site plan 56-8 of 2024. This item was before you on January the 13th, postponed till tonight to continue the public hearing. The proponents have made modifications to their plan for the property at 13 Mile. We're going to continue the public hearing on that this evening. The order of speakers will be, next up, our planning consultant, Joe is here from Giffords-Webster to give you an update on what modifications have been made to the plan and how they do or do not meet with the regulations of the ordinance. We would have the proponent speak after and then open up the public hearing before going to the council for deliberation. I will turn it over to Giffords-Webster unless you have any questions for myself, and I will be here through the duration for any questions that may arise.
Quick comment, if I could.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Is the report, would be answering the suggestions or comments that council made at last hearing? Would that be part of his presentation regarding responses to
It-
that?
If it relates to any of the planning items as they relate to the zoning ordinance, yes. Anything that would relate to engineering or fire, we do have their reviews, and we will respond as we're able to.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yes.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Can you now, or maybe at a later point in the meeting, give us just a very brief summary of enforcement actions on these properties that have been allowed to rot, these homes open, and what the city has had to do to try to get some sort of upkeep or maintenance on these properties?
I know that over the last 2 years, we have had some enforcement on these properties, primarily pertaining to cutting of grass and weeds. We did have an open enforcement in 2023 on the structures themselves, and I have asked our code enforcement office to move forward with any enforcement on those structures into the future.
Has the enforcement in the past resulted in any fines or court action against the owners of these properties or the owner of these properties?
I don't have that information available, but I can do some research and forward that to the council.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, then, we will move on to the presentation from Giffords Webster.
Thank you. So I'm going to focus on a summary of what has changed since the last time this plan was in front of you. I'm going to start with the unit count, which has been reduced. The total unit count was 76, and it is now 69. That breaks down between the two halves of the project. You have the Tabernacle and the Mulberry Park halves of the project. As there were 17 total buildings, and now there are 16. The two-story townhome units that will be for sale on the Mulberry Park side, there were 40 of those previously. There are 36 now. And on the Baptist Manor-related Tabernacle side, there were 36 ranch units prior, and now with this version of the plan, there are 33 ranch units. Those are meant to be 55 plus. Our ordinance calculates density on the basis of the number of rooms, and that translates to 2-bedroom units have 3 rooms and 3-bedroom units have 4 rooms. So previously, there were 268 rooms in this project, and there are 243 now. That is in line with the density permitted in the RC1 district. Other things that have changed include the setbacks. As one of the buildings was taken away, the stormwater ponds were condensed to a single one on the far east side of the project. So a lot of the minimum setbacks have changed. In the front, we went from having a 62-foot setback for Tabernacle and an 82-foot setback for Mulberry Park to having 67 for Tabernacle and 67 for Mulberry Park as well. The rear setback, which is the one that backs up to the neighborhood behind, was previously 60 feet for Tabernacle and 76 feet for Mulberry Park. It is now 83 feet for Tabernacle and 85 feet for Mulberry Park, so that has increased. The side setback to the east, there is an occupied home directly east of this site, was previously 45 feet and is now 165 feet. The buildings that were once along that property line that had walkouts are no longer there, and the pond occupies that space. And finally, the setback to the west, which is to Baptist Manor itself, has been reduced from 37 to 10.79 feet. Otherwise, the principal changes that you'll see are that the circulation has been modified on the site, and that applies both to vehicular circulation and pedestrian circulation. So one of the access points, the 13 Mile, has been removed, and there was a boulevard in the access point across from Westgate. That boulevard has been removed as well, so the width of that access point matches the width of Westgate across 13 Mile. And then there is a connection point to Baptist Manor itself from this project. So you don't have to go out onto 13 Mile to get into Baptist Manor. You can go directly between the two sites. They have also added sidewalks throughout the project. You've got the one that goes along 13 Mile. There are connections to that, to the interior circulation sidewalks. Those sidewalks also lead now to two small park areas with some seating. Those were not there before. The narrative from the applicant also notes that the 13-mile frontage will include a space for public art. It was not clear from the plans where that is, so that's something that they would probably address when speaking to you tonight. Finally, there were some small changes to the tree removal because there are portions of the site that they were affecting with development before that they're not now. Due to the reconfiguration of the site. And we have recorded the numbers in our letter, and they are providing a shortfall of 19 trees, which is a smaller shortfall than they were providing before. They are going to be planting some of the trees that qualify as replacements for this project on the Baptist Manor site, so they won't all be on the portion of the project that's affected by new development. Some of them will be on the existing Baptist Manor site. That's 59 of the trees that are being planted as replacements. So the 19 tree shortfall would be what the request for relief is now. And that was a summary of the changes. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to address them.
Okay, any questions for Joe?
All right, thank you.
And next, we'll hear from the proponent, please. Good evening, Mr. Schaefer.
Maybe Charmaine. Was it Jacob? Here it is.
All right, well, good evening, City Council. It is a pleasure to be in front of you once again this evening. Again, my name is Aaron Schaefer. I'm with Schaefer Development. I'm proud to announce I have not had 3 cups of coffee tonight like I had to at the February meeting, so we can go a little bit slower tonight. So if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. In addition, I've got Jake Geiger here from Fleece and Vandenbrink, our traffic consultant. So if there's any questions specifically you have related to traffic, level of service, the difference between the prior traffic impact study and the revised study, I would ask that you wait to address those questions maybe till after I'm done with my presentation, and then we can have Jake come up because he can give you, the best answer possible on any traffic questions you may have. So tonight's presentation is divided into the 7 following sections you see here. For the sake of time and the fact that you've gone through about part of this slide deck at the February meeting, I'll breeze through some of those sections a little quicker, but also provide some explanation as well to any curious neighbors who are in attendance this evening. So I wanted to provide a quick high-level overview on community engagement. We've done quite a bit more than what's listed here since we've had the property first under contract in early 2024, but I wanted to provide some high-level changes since the study session we attended on February 10th. In advance of that study session, we did have the opportunity to meet with the Westgate HOA board, and since the meeting again on the 10th, we've had the chance to meet with Holly Hill Farms, their HOA board, as well as submit the revised plans that you see in front of you this evening. And again, almost every single comment that was made by council in January and again in February, I've made sure to address that in this presentation. So if we need additional detail, feel free to stop me and I can add some additional information. So I want to take a quick step back and show you the plan that was in front of you in January. We had a total density of 76 units, 36 on the Tabernacle, 40 on Mulberry Park. I don't want to go into the mathematics too much, but one thing I'd like to bring to your attention is the room density. For the townhouses on the right side of the screen, Mulberry Park, All of the end cap units are designed as 3-bedroom premium offerings. However, all of the internal units are designed as a 2-bedroom with a home office den option. At the end of the day, roughly 50% opt for that standard home office, while 50% opt for that 3-bedroom. Hence the room count between 149 on the low end and 160 on the high end. At the end of the day, what I want you to pay attention to is what I have highlighted in yellow. This plan in January, we had a density of 6.3 units per acre with a room yield that calculates the rooms per acre of about 20 to 22. At the end of the day, with this plan, we were between 8 and 18 rooms below RC1 maximum. Now you take a look at the new plan in front of you today. We've got 69 units, a loss of 7 units. We lost 3 units on the Tabernacle, so we're down to 33, and we lost 4 units on Mulberry Park, so we're down to 36. Again, assuming that same understanding on the room count, the fact that 50% opt for that 2-bedroom, 50% opt for that 3-bedroom, we're between 16 and 26 units less than the plan that you saw in January. Looking at the totals, you can see that our density is down from 6.3 to 5.5 units per acre, with a room yield between the 18 and 19.5 rooms per acre range. When it comes to RC1, we're between 33 and 55 rooms below the maximum, which is 276. Now, I want to put both site plans side by side so you can truly see the differences in the fact that we heard everything that was said in January from council and from interested residents and did our best to make those changes. So you can see here in purple, we have the relocation of the primary and secondary entrances to improve traffic flow and safety. I'll talk about those in greater detail on following slides, but you can see we're nixing the boulevard at Westgate. We do show a 13-mile entrance that is parallel with Westgate Drive, as well as that new primary entrance, which again makes its way to Detroit Baptist Drive, signalized intersection. You'll see that on the following slide. In green, you can see that we have removed the western basin, the basin on the Tabernacle property, to create more of a destination community with expanded amenity spaces, which will be highlighted later in the presentation. You can see in this area in blue, Joe mentioned it in his review, but we did remove that 5-plex unit that did abut up to Mr. Dunn's residence. And rather than having 2 basins, we've worked with our civil engineer to determine that 1 basin can be used to handle the stormwater for the entire development. And then finally, in red, you can see we've reduced the building scale and increased the southern setback to Holly Hill Farms. The prior plan to the left, you see 4, 5, and 6 unit configurations. Now we're only showing 3 and 4 unit configurations. Just to bring this to your attention, the underlying RA1 zoning does require a rear yard setback of 35 feet. And with this new plan on the right, we are showing a rear yard setback from the back of that southern elevation to the southern property line of 83 to 86 feet. That is 48 to 51 feet more than the underlying zoning, roughly double the setback or 2.5 times compared to just underlying RA1 zoning. So we've done the most we can to provide a significant buffer, again, to those southernmost units and Holly Hills to the south. Now moving into a more enlarged site plan. This really puts things into detail. You can see our primary entrance, how it's shown there. As part of this development, Baptist Manor has agreed to tear down that first duplex fronting 13 Mile Road. So as a result of this, you will now be able to access this community through the signalized intersection at 13 Mile and Detroit Baptist Drive. We are also showing a secondary entrance that is parallel with Westgate Drive. You can see that right here. And that secondary entrance is proposed in that precise location to meet International Fire Code requirements and engineering and traffic's recommendations. I'll talk about those in a following slide. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is some of the Baptist Manor enhancements that are likely to occur post-site plan approval. During our conversations with Baptist Manor, there's been quite some discussion on actually eliminating the 4 duplexes along the eastern or the shared western property line, as those are some of the oldest units on Baptist Manor's entire campus. You drive right there, those 4 units have slightly different architectural design as some of the preceding units more internal to the development. They need a lot of work done. So Baptist Manor's decided, listen, as part of this development, we're gonna nix the 1 so that we can get a signalized access to this development. And at a later date, post-site plan approval, they'd be looking to eliminate the the 6 2-unit buildings and replace that with 2 4-plex units. At the end of the day, it's a net density of 0. No units are gained, no units are lost. Now moving into the site plan alterations. You have a table here that showcases that original plan of 76 units, and then that revised plan that you're seeing here tonight for 69 units. The most critical takeaways are highlighted on the right side of the screen. So as a result of the removal of that one Baptist Manor unit and how that roadway is designed to connect to Detroit Baptist, we gained roughly 0.4 acres as a result of that design change. In regards to units and buildings, we lost 7 units, or 1 building in totality. And again, those units to the south have been changed to 3 and 4 unit configurations, really to minimize that visual impact to Holly Hills to the south. The 2 most important things I want you to remember are rooms and density. And this is, again, from the original plan in January to the current plan in front of you this evening. We lost between 25 and 35 rooms, or effectively lost 9 to 14% of our total room count as part of this density reduction effort. This led to 7 units, roughly a reduction of 12% from the prior plan to the plan you see in front of you this evening. Now, one thing I want to put together and really give you is an apples-to-apples perspective on some of these adjacent townhome densities along the south side of 13 from Orchard Lake and Middle Bell. Baptist Manor is a bit of an outlier as they have a density of about 16 units an acre and a room per acre count of about 31, 32. So let's just put that to the side so that I can give you an understanding of Glen Oaks, our PUD, and Cove Creek. At Glen Oaks, you can see that they have a room yield per acre of about 21 rooms per acre. Slide over to the right to our PUD in blue, you can see we're now showing a rooms per acre yield between 18 and 19.5 rooms per acre. That is less dense from a room yield per acre perspective than Glen Oaks. Slide further east to Cove Creek, you can see the density there is a little closer to about 17 rooms per acre. So again, when you go from Orchard Lake, more intense commercial uses, more intense office uses to Middle Bell, which has more of a residential character, you're seeing that decrease in the room count per acre as you make your way again from Orchard Lake to Middle Bell Road. Thought that was very important to stress to you this evening to show the cohesion of development along this part of 13 Mile Road. Now moving back into the site plan, this is really where I'm going to spend most of my time this evening. There was an individual on council who in January was kind enough to summarize really all of the points made by every city council member as well as neighbors during that meeting. So I want to address the 5 critical ones here on this slide, and I have some items as well that I'll show in some following slides, if you can just give me a moment. So in regards to comment number 1, deep buffering, that is the box in orange there. You can see that the new site plan increases the buffer to Holly Hill Farms to 83 and 86 feet respectively. We exceed the RA requirement of 35 feet and provide an additional 48 to 51 foot buffer to the south. Again, there was a request to try to make it 75 feet or greater, and we're happy to say that through our efforts, we've been able to increase that, and again, provide additional 11 to 16 feet above and beyond what you saw last in January. In regards to traffic flow and safety, that is the comment in purple up top. You can see that we now have that new primary entrance, and as part of this development, Baptist Manor will be removing that one duplex to establish a new primary entrance at that signalized intersection, much improving traffic flow and safety. In regards to the secondary entrance, we are providing that to meet the fire department requirements as outlined in the International Fire Code, and the entrance is aligned with Westgate Drive per traffic and engineering department recommendations to minimize turn lane conflicts. As a result of this development, we will be eliminating the curb cuts on 13 Mile from 5 curb cuts as it stands with the existing residences to 1 curb cut, the one on adjacent to Westgate Drive. I want to discuss, before I move into the next comment, our meeting we had in late January. We had the opportunity to meet with the mayor's office, traffic, and engineering departments where it was recommended that alignment with Westgate Drive occur. We actually were showing our roadway slightly further right in between Westgate and the stormwater basin, but it was the opinion, again, of traffic and engineering to eliminate any type of left-hand turn conflicts, especially since there's a hill as you make your way to Westgate that could provide a little bit of a conflict. So they said, listen, safety is our key priority. We have to have this in alignment with Westgate. So if there's any other questions on that, I defer to folks in fire and engineering on that. And again, I do have Jake Geiger here with Fleece and Vandenbreg, so should there be questions, he can ask them. or he can answer them. The next item I want to focus on is walkability, that box in blue. You can see that we're now showing enhanced pedestrian infrastructure. The site plan now contains sidewalks along both internal sides of the roadway to improve pedestrian accessibility. In addition, we are providing a direct connection south of the primary entrance, right here, to access into Baptist Manor's campus. So residents will have two opportunities to enter Baptist Manor, whether it's through the 13-mile frontage sidewalk or the sidewalk along the south side of the new drive. Comment number 4, reduced density. It's that block all the way up there in green. Unit reduction. The revised plan again decreases the total unit count from 76 to 69 units, 7 fewer units, reflecting a 12% loss in density. From a bedroom perspective, this design leads to 25 to 35 less rooms, equating to roughly 9 to 14% in a reduction in bedroom yield. Finally, item number 5, visual impact. As you can see, the southernmost units to Holly Hill Farms have been reduced to 3 and 4 unit configurations, ensuring a better visual and structural alignment with the surrounding neighborhood. And some other items I want to talk about, if we are to receive a positive recommendation tonight, all of the blighted structures will be removed from this property. There is a barn that is falling in the back of where kind of the orange and pink boxes are. We would be looking to remove that dilapidated barn should we receive positive approval this evening, as well as any vehicles, the pool that's in one of the yards, and fuel tanks. All of those will be removed as part of this development. And just to provide a refresher, when we first approached Planning Commission in 2024, we had a proposal for a 3-story townhome unit on just the Mulberry Park property, which again was the same piece of property that the Chaldean Community Foundation had for their 100-unit subsidized apartment development. And after talking to neighbors and having the opportunity to partner with the Baptist Manor folks, we decided, listen, a ranch and 2-story product is the way to go, given all of the feedback we've received from the neighbors, as well as the folks at the city of Farmington Hills. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. This plan has evolved 6 ways to Sunday to what it is now, which I think is probably one of the better, this is the best iteration we've had in front of you this evening. So some additional comments I wanted to talk about was that larger basin on the eastern boundary. Again, that 5-unit townhome building has been removed as part of our density reduction efforts. As the western basin has been eliminated, and following discussions since the February study session, we worked with our civil engineer to determine that, listen, that eastern basin can be upsized, no more need for that western basin, and that's where we're going to put some of our amenities, which I'll talk about during the public benefits section of the presentation. And again, that eastern basin at Mulberry Park has been upsized, allowing for the creation, as I said, of that central amenity space. In regards to sense of placemaking, there are 2 key placemaking and amenity spaces that have been identified in the central corridor. That's where that western basin once was, and just south of that eastern basin, more in the southeast quadrant of the property, to really enhance community engagement and livability. I know there was talks about public art, and I'll talk about that, of course, during the public benefits section of the presentation. We are committed to doing something along the frontage of 13 Mile. Should we receive a positive recommendation tonight, we will work with engineering to locate any franchise or municipal utilities within the right-of-way and place that exhibition in an area that stays outside of any easement issues. So rest assured that is something that we are committed to. It is not shown on the plan, but again, should we receive positive recommendation tonight, we will work with engineering to find a suitable location for that amenity. In regards to some of the additional landscaping measures, as part of our clustered development, we've increased the setbacks and have lowered the deficient tree calculation from 85 trees down to 59 trees. At the end of the day, we're saving 26 more legacy trees on site than we were with our prior plan. Another item that I would like to bring to your attention is landscaping along 13 Mile. On our landscape plan, which you'll see shortly, we are providing a bevy of landscaping along the PUD's frontage for the Tabernacle and Mulberry Park. But again, any deficient trees we have, we are no longer asking for a waiver. Baptist Manor is committed to planting that deficient tree calculation along their frontage of 13 Mile. So at the end of the day, as a result of this development, there will be over 1/3 3rd mile of new landscaping when you go from Baptist Manor to the Tabernacle to Mulberry Park. So I want to provide some illustrations on drainage, as this was something that was brought forth during the February study session meeting. As the property currently stands, stormwater flows south and then makes its way east, and it really impacts the neighbors really to the right of where that box's existing site drains south and east. As part of our development, we have made various strategic draining planning efforts to minimize impact to legacy trees on site, and of course that tree preservation and wildlife conservation buffer we have along the southern property line. All stormwater runoff, including roof drains, will be routed into the eastern stormwater basin. So all of those areas where you see the red arrows, all of that stormwater will make its way either into the rear yard swales or the stormwater catch basins along the roadway, and eventually make its way into that eastern basin and then outlet at an agricultural rate into the storm system along 13 Mile. The only area that will not drain into the basin is the runoff from the rear of the southernmost units, which we also discussed during the January meeting. After speaking with neighbors, we wanted to perform a limited grading and clearing in this area to keep as many legacy trees intact while also filling in any gaps in the foliage. And again, just to testify to the fact that we've met with neighbors time and time again, we've met individually with neighbors where they've actually shown us gaps in the tree line, and we're going to be looking to selectively plant trees in those areas, because the neighbors are living there day in and day out. They know better than us where the most appropriate place is to locate trees along that southern property line. So we continue to meet with neighbors to address that. So, just to give you an idea, we love meeting with neighbors, and anytime we can keep them involved in part of the process, it always brings a smile to my face. Now, I want to focus your attention on what new housing stock is trading for in the city of Farmington Hills. And really, I wanted to locate housing stock that was built within 2020 or newer, from a single-family perspective and a multifamily perspective. Again, the townhouses at Mulberry Park are slated to start somewhere in the $400,000 range, but I wanted to give you an idea of what is current detached single-family housing stock that has been built fairly new trading for in the community. Hills of Franklin by Robertson's a bit of an outlier, as those homes are selling for $1 million plus. But in general, when you take a look at the Robertson, the Pulte developments in blue, and then the Bogie development in the city of Farmington in red there, you can see that housing stock that has been built from 2022 onward has been selling or reselling between the $500,000 and $7,000 range. So again, the fact that we're coming in with a townhome product in the $400,000 range is less than what existing single-family housing is selling for in Farmington Hills and the community at large. Now, I wanted to take an additional step because at the end of the day, what we're proposing on our project is attached product, an attached townhouse for Mulberry Park, an attached ranch for the Tabernacle. Gramercy Ridge, this was the Hunter Pasteur development done on the former Farmington Hills school site right next to Johnny Pomodoro's. Bit of an outlier, but it's important to stress. Ranch townhomes had sold between $500,000 up to its most recent sale a couple of weeks ago at $920,000. So it shows that Farmington Hills is quite a desirable community to live in. But I wanted to take a step back and show what are townhouses trading for in Farmington Hills and the community at large. And really the only townhome comp that is new is the Hillside Town community that Robertson is doing. So I wanted to pull some additional comps that Pulte has done out in Commerce and neighboring Novi, because it's just a stone's throw away from the city of Farmington Hills. And what you can see here is that townhomes are selling and reselling between the upper $300,000 to $600,000 range. Hillside, again, being a 3-story townhouse, that's a slightly different demographic, hence that lower price point. But you can see, again, the fact that we're positioning townhouses in the $400,000 price range, that's well in line with what comps are trading for in Farmington Hills and nearby communities. The last thing I want to touch on is the Rose Senior Living development. This is the newest independent senior living development, to my knowledge, in the city of Farmington Hills, and the cheapest unit there is leasing for $4,300 per month. Again, to give you an idea, the Baptist Manor Ranch units are to start in the low to mid 2,000 range, which is half the price of Ed Rose with similar amenities. So now I wanted to provide a quick overview of Baptist Manor. Again, the Tabernacle will feature high-quality premier ranch homes with projected rental rates in the 2000s range. The rental rates are substantially less than other independent living solutions in the community. And one thing that's quite interesting is that residents will have the ability to access all of Baptist Manor's services and amenities as a resident of the Tabernacle. So should individuals, get a little older, need some additional assistance, housekeeping, laundry care, that is something that they can utilize while staying at the Tabernacle. Now I want to shift the discussion on public benefit and provide some additional insight as to the types of passive and active amenities we are looking to position on the property. The area in red, which is more in the central portion of the development along the 13-mile frontage, is where we want to have our public art and community, community gathering space, one of many. So again, should we receive positive recommendation tonight, we will work with engineering to locate that public art in a correct location. The next item I want to pivot to are some of these active and passive amenity spaces. You can see here in green, as a result of removing that western basin, we now have an opportunity to put a nice meandering pathway and fitness trail for residents to enjoy. And we're also looking to do some type of native landscape garden in that area where the arrow is being pointed, with benches so that you can enjoy some of that native landscaping, rain garden, butterfly corridor area to really promote ecological stability. We are also positioning a similar type of sister park, again, south of that eastern basin where residents will be able to sit down and enjoy that basin, as well as that tree preservation, wildlife conservation buffer along the southern property line. And the last thing I want to touch on are these boxes in yellow. We are looking to do a 3-foot-high landscape wall along select areas around the frontage of the PUD for landscaping to sit, as well as provide some nice privacy shielding for Holly Hill residents to the north, as well as residents that will move into this community at a future date. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. These public benefits reinforce our commitment to establishing a destination community, fostering a strong sense of place for future residents to engage, relax, and enjoy. Now, I wanted to talk about some parts of the master plan, as that was an item of discussion that was brought forth on the February meeting. And before I talk through some of these items, I want to just leave these 2 items in your head so you can think about them as we go through these couple of slides. Trust me, we're almost done. So our community aims to address the missing middle housing need, serving both young professionals and families seeking attainable home ownership, as well as empty nesters, individuals 55 and better, who are desiring more of a maintenance-free and independent living housing solution, which helps foster a natural housing transition for new families who are looking to move into the community. So again, our development, as the townhouse is more toward that first-time home buyer, younger demographic, more attainable housing solution, and again, the Tabernacle, more of that 55 and better demographic who's looking for a lower maintenance housing alternative where they don't have to plow the snow and deal with, painting the house and all those fun things that come with home ownership. So looking at Part 4, public engagement of your master plan, it stresses the need for senior housing is increasing. As you all know, the baby boomer demographic is one of the largest demographics out there, period. And, within the next 10 to 20 years, there needs to be more of this type of housing to allow, individuals who are getting 55 and older, less kids, more of a lock and leave lifestyle, something that's a little easier than home ownership. In regards to the special planning area, this talks specifically about the prior applicant's proposal for the Chaldean Community Foundation. Generally requesting consultation with the residents if something is to be built there. Some respondents encourage greater flexibility in the terms of the type of units that could be built there. And again, we've met with each and every one of these residences over a dozen times from when we first put this property under contract. So I think we're meeting the spirit and intent of the master plan. I also wanted to provide the residential density map. We are the only property in the northeast quadrant of Farmington Hills that does have this flex residential designation as seen on this map here. There are a few other properties, but again, this more northeastern quadrant, we're the lone wolf in that regard. Now, I don't want to focus too much time on this, but we'll look at page 84, flex residential development. There were discussions all the way from the very first Giffords-Webster review letter that these properties on 13 Mile doesn't necessarily make sense to continue that character of large single-family lots. I mean, those homes have sat vacant and dilapidated for a number of years. We're not the contract landowner, so I can't control what happens on the property, but again, these have been sitting for quite some time. And it says in this special planning area, it allows you to get a little more creative and do more of a higher density attached product, whether it's multiplexes, 8 units in a building, row houses, small multifamily structures, but it stresses this one thing which has been on the top of our mind since the very beginning, especially when open space preservation provides greater separation and screening from adjacent single-family neighborhoods. And again, with our newest plan, we're providing an 83 to 86-foot setback from those southernmost units to that southern property line. Again, I feel we've met the spirit and intent of the master plan. This talks specifically about our properties on 13 Mile Road and encourages some type of housing such as small attached units built as townhouses, small multiplex buildings, a mix of multiple styles. I think we fall under that mix of multiple styles with the ranch and 2-story products. And the second point, increases in density should be tied to deep buffering from the neighborhood to the south. Again, we're showing 83 to 86 feet. Now, these were the items that I mentioned at the very beginning, but attainability. Young adults who are just beginning to live on their own, older residents looking to downsize while staying in the community. Who needs attainable housing? Young professionals, young families, first-time home buyers looking to purchase, retirees and empty nesters looking to downsize yet stay in the Farmington Hills. And again, on page 135, senior populations are only continuing to grow. This type of infill development will need to, happen in Farmington Hills and other communities to meet the likes of that demographic. Again, I feel we're meeting the spirit and intent of the master plan with what we're proposing on this property. The last thing I want to end on is the economic development plan. We are bringing 69 units as a result of this development, so we'll help chip away at some of the housing and age-restricted, recommendations that were brought forth in the master plan. So I want to thank you very much for the time this evening. I do apologize for all the detail, but my father and mother always taught me to be as detailed-oriented as possible and ask questions. So now I open the floor to you. If you have any questions, either myself, my father, or the representative at Giffords-Webster is more than willing to give you an answer. So again, thank you so much for the time.
Yeah. So I believe the next phase is the public hearing, and then it'll come to council for questions. So at this time, I open our public hearing. I note that we have a number of blue cards specifically for this item. I also note that we have received a list of individuals who would like to go on the record as being opposed. They are the following: Beverly Mahalko, Joanne Zekar, Joe and Kathy Sterbling, Lindsay Matek, Michelle Negota, Amy Broglin-Peterson, Charles Spees, John Negota, Mark Sanders, Patricia Lebrecq, Paul Schultz, Roger Matuz, Brant Kessel, Douglas and Maybe Robertson. And so for those who have been to public hearings or public comment in this chambers, you're familiar with our process. For those who are new here, we have 3 minutes of public comment. You'll see we have a clock that will begin at your time. For the public hearing, this is your opportunity to give your point of view. This is not a time for engagement back and forth. So council will not be responding to the items that you speak as you speak them, but we will be incorporating that as we ask our own questions later in this particular agenda item. And so that we can keep things moving. The first card I have is Sam Rabah, to be followed by Michael Pucher.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I am here specifically to address the Council on an issue that I think is of great liability to the city of Farmington Hills. And that is, I've lived on Westgate now for 25 years. My parents lived in the home for 18 years prior to my wife and I and my family. And today I drove from Westgate all the way to Haggerty and noticed, paid attention to how many deceleration lanes there are. The area between Farmington and Haggerty, every residential street has a deceleration lane turning into it. The area from Westgate to Orchard Lake, including Glen Oaks, Greenway Street, Eastfield, do not have that. My issue is a safety issue for me and my neighbors. Every day when I come home from work, my wife and I were turning in. I turn the signal on at the synagogue exit onto 13 Mile. And that's about maybe 400 yards to my street. I turn the signal, I slow down. There's always some joker right on my bumper, distracted more than likely, trying to push me ahead to go faster, which I'm not going to do because I have to go to 15 miles an hour to turn into my street. And as soon as I come to almost a stop, they whip around me into the left-hand turn lane to pass. They're not going anywhere. They're going to stop at the Baptist Manor Light. They're going to stop at Orchard Lake. It's silly. I have names for these people that's inappropriate to use in this venue here. I've had 2 incidents where I'm in the left-hand turn lane to turn into my sub, and one of these jokers come and whips around, and I'm looking at this person head-on going 50 miles an hour. At one incident, I had to put my car in reverse to back up to allow them to cut across in front of the car turning into the sub. Very dangerous liability to the city of Farmington Hills. Why cannot there be a cutout, a curb cut for me to be able to pull in to turn? It's a safety issue. Something drastic will eventually happen there, because it happens every single day. I work at 13 Mile and Telegraph. I drive that every single day. And
Thank you, sir.
I would, time's up, okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Michael Putcher to be followed by Wanda Whalen. Good evening.
Hello, thank you for the time. I'm a Westgate resident, and I'd just like to reiterate what my colleague just said. The deceleration lanes would be very much appreciated. I've almost been hit as well. People pass you in that left turn lane trying to turn into the sub all the time. And then when you're trying to turn left into Westgate, the hill, the other night I was driving, someone had a burnout headlight, and I didn't even see him coming up this hill there. So traffic is a real concern, and we're adding this many units. We are concerned about the traffic in that area. Another point that I'd just like to reiterate on was the density of it. As I brought up at the last meeting, the 12 Mile Inkster development has 30 acres and 75 units. Here we want to put 69 units and 15 acres. I just don't see how that balances out. And if they're using the PUD as an end around to get in to do these more units, because when I do the calculations, I come up with the 12 Mile is 1 unit at every half acre, and the 13 Mile would be 1 unit every quarter acre. So it's twice the density going in there. So we're really concerned about that. We're also concerned the Westgate sub is a really unique sub. It's filled with historic custom homes all throughout there. Every house is unique. Every house has unique landscaping too. If you ever drive through there in the spring, every house has a different flowering tree. It's really beautiful. It's a really nice neighborhood. So we're concerned on the landscaping too and how this is going to affect our property values. And then my final point is on the blight. I know they're unrelated, but you know, the blight has been there for years, so if somebody could address the blight, that would be much appreciated, to get that cleaned up too. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Wanda Whalen, to be followed by Michelle Negota.
Hello, I appreciate this opportunity. I thank the City Council and the Mayor for this opportunity. I definitely oppose this PUD. I live directly behind where they want to talk, where they're talking about developing. I'm not against the build, I'm just against where they want to build it. When I look at some of the papers he was showing, and I look at all this Baptist manor, and I look at all they want to do, and I see the neighbors being squozed out. A lot of people have been there for 20, 30 years, and this could be really devastating for them. And the traffic has already been off the hook. I talked to a lot of people in Westgate, and the traffic is dangerous already. It's a 2-lane highway. It's on jam all the time. And I just don't see why they want to cram all of these buildings in this little space. I don't understand that. I understand people need places to live, and I understand that they building in a lot of places, and I hope Farmington Hills don't cave into a lot of these developers, but have some consideration, I ask you, please, for the people that live there, that's maintaining their property. And I understand by being a union member years ago and being into politics that a lot of times when people want to develop something, they show you plans, and then when it actually happens, that's not what happens. It's something totally different. And I understand that their whole job is to convince people, and you guys, what they want to do is okay. It's not okay. And I just want to say that I don't think it's a good thing it's going to affect it's going to devastate the soil, the trees, and everything. It's going to block our views. It's just not good. And I hope you consider the residents that's been here. I love Farmington Hills. It's a beautiful city. And I just hate to see people get squozed out from big business coming in, flexing their muscles. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Whalen. Michelle Negota, to be followed by John P. Negota. Good evening.
I am definitely the better half. That one. I just have kind of a few random things. The first one is, of course, density, density, density. That's just the bottom line right there. I do have concerns about the traffic. As we all know, 696 is now closed for 2 years. All the surface roads, 13 mile, 12 mile, are all going to be impacted by that. And so is if they start to build. That brings up another concern. I understood from one of the other meetings that it'll take 2 years to prep approximately 2 years to prep the site before you start to build the homes and so forth. The other day, there was a well digger, 2 well diggers right across the street. And what they did was I was coming home later on during the day, and they were parked on Westgate, and I have to go around them. I do not want to see their construction vehicles in our subdivision. That is a very major concern. And what are we going to do with all this mud? There's 2 lanes, and you've got the middle lane with all this construction traffic and mud and stuff going in there just to prep the site, let alone build it. And one of the other things is, what about the parking? If they're going to have a place where you can have parties or whatever, where are we parking all these people? I think every house has 2 driveways, or I don't know exactly what it is. I'm sorry, I apologize. But, it's a lot of density for a small area. Westgate has approximately 73 homes, and I believe we have at least 70 acres in our sub. I think that's probably fair. So I know my husband and I have almost 2 acres, And so seeing so many houses in such a little bitty area it's really devastating. We've been here for 43 years, and we moved out here because Farmington Hills is what it is. And as far as I know, it's still, it's zoned single family still across the street. And flexibility would be maybe instead of 13 homes, which it's zoned for, maybe 26, maybe 30. But 69 and then more at the other end, it's too much for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Negota. John P. Negota to be followed by Amy Broglin Peterson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name's John Negota. I've been a resident, along with Michelle, Farmington Hills and the Westgate subdivision for 43 years. Enjoyed every minute of it. Basically, I've been to all of these meetings we've had to hear about this project. And quite frankly, my position hasn't changed in my point 7, but I will reiterate, okay? My objection's relatively simple, as Michelle just said, and I will say myself, density, safety, and density, okay? I understand what the numbers that the developers put up there show. I understand that part, but that's not reality. When you get down to 70 units with their families in it, okay, I don't care how many you've got in a room. It's how many are actually coming out into the neighborhood. How many are coming out and through the entrances and the exits of that, of which now that they've changed a little bit, I'm not as concerned, but I'm still very, very much concerned. Gentleman before said the acceleration lanes. We had those and it worked well, the acceleration and deceleration. Those were removed about 20 years ago. As I've mentioned to you before, I personally have nearly been killed because of that. We've got a center lane for turning. You get a westbound car coming in to make a left-hand turn, eastbound car going west, I'm sorry, yeah, it's going west, so one's turning right, the other's turning left. Person comes behind and passes around into that turning lane. That's where we nearly get nailed, head-on collisions. Alrighty, basically the area's been zoned RA1. We know that, everybody knows it, single-family residence, and that's really what it needs to stay. One other thing that I want to actually point out, and I'm not casting aspersions upon the gentleman here or their company, but 30 years ago, we were promised, when they were putting in the structures up on Northwestern, we were promised we would have a brick wall. Absolutely. 30 years later, I'm still waiting for it. And there's a fence back there that's in disrepair all the time. I call over there, they won't even repair the chain link fence. Okay, my point is, I understand promises coming through, and we're gonna do this in the future. I look at that with jaundiced eye. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Negota. Amy Broglin Peterson to be followed by Adele Letterman. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us back again to speak to the proposal tonight. I wrote each of you today a very long-winded note, which I apologize for. I can assure you I do not want to be a nuisance. I actually detest it, to be honest. But, first and foremost, all of you made very wonderful comments during the last meeting, which I also do not enjoy doing, but sat through and reviewed the entire video so I could quote appropriately. Amongst other points, concerns were mentioned regarding lack of compatibility with surrounding areas, high residential density, traffic safety, affordability, resident value, neighboring home value, walkability, and lack of demonstration of inability to sell these lots. The revised proposal addresses none of these points in full, and most of them not even partially, okay? So again, I seek your continued support in rejecting this proposal as it stands. Frankly, I like the Schaefer family. I think if I could choose someone to build with, it'd probably be them. I think they're a very likable and seemingly honest group. I started talking with my husband about how much they've probably spent developing this proposal. I also thought back to the fact that we've been talking about this since 2023. And it got me actually a little bit angry and emotional because I realized that through that entire time, we've consistently missed one key point. And that is, how and why has this corridor been allowed to continue to depose and decompose to the level of blight that it is today? We have a set of city ordinances specifically, explicitly designed to prevent this very occurrence. And we have a gentleman, a person, under the guise of an LLC, who has pointedly, through affiliation with the former proposal, the CCF, has pointedly allowed this blight to occur, who has gone unchecked. Those houses have cesspools standing in the back of them against city code. They have in-ground oil tanks. Who knows what's seeping out of those? Up until a few days ago, the front door of one of those properties was standing open for at least 4 months, and that was visible from 13 Mile Road. If we want to talk about the future of the city and our young people and our young families, instead of writing these off as blighted and taking the 1% Councilman Bridges mentioned in the last meeting of undeveloped land we have left and stuffing something into it because we can't sell the lots, why don't we force sale by delivering on what our city charter allows? Thank you.
Thank you. Nope. Thank you. Adele Letterman to be followed by Louise Lieberman. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Adele Letterman. I'm from Westgate Subdivision, and this will be very brief. Originally, it was 76 houses or units on the 13 acres, and now they cut it down to 69. It is still too dense for that area. Twice I spoke to them and I said, it's just too much, too dense. And I was told, we can't make a profit. Please, think of this area, the longevity of Farmington Hills and the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Louise Lieberman to be followed by Julie Skeen. Good evening.
I agree. I believe it's too dense, and we've said that many times. I'd also like to add 3 names to the people who are opposed. My own, Louise Lieberman from Westgate, Arlene Spicer from Westgate, and Adele Letterman from Westgate. And I'd also like to say that while they were doing the overall plan, we were asked for comments, and all of the online comments for that area on 13 Mile, I didn't see one that said, please increase the density. In fact, all the online comments were against changing the zoning. And thanks for listening.
Thank you. Julie Skeen to be followed by Lviv Matusik, and that is the last card I have on this specific project. I have other cards that have no project names on them. So those will be slated for just general public comment unless you want to come edit your card. Thank you. Good evening.
Hi. I just want to show my support, first of all, to everybody else and every comment that they've made. I would like to add that I still am not satisfied with the fact that there are 2-story structures backing up to Holly Hill Farms. We talk about the density, and I would still like to see everything abutting the other properties being single-story. I know that they're working with Baptist Manor crazy idea, but is there any reason all the townhomes couldn't go in the center and all the single story around the perimeter? Who knows? I would like to say that I appreciate the changes that you folks did make. I can see that you did put a lot of thought into it, and, you know, good job as far as that goes, but I still think it could go a little bit farther. And as I mentioned, I do support all the comments about the driving safety issues and the density. You know, it's not so much the setback now, it's the height of the buildings abutting the single-family homes. That's my biggest concern. Thank you
very much. Lviv Matushek, followed by Lindsay Machek.
Yes, my name is Livio Marinica, and I live in
About that, sir.
Westgate. I agree, of course, with everything that everybody before me said, I just need to add something. We have even today, we walk the dogs, you know, a lot of people in our sub have dogs, and we know each other, we wave, we talk. There are people that come in our subdivision and walk their dogs sometimes, or people that we don't know because our subdivision is so nice. It's very nice to walk through, and very quiet community, you know, closed and such. So even today we see people who don't belong to our subdivision that come from the houses, you know, in the neighborhood. So with this new development, we expect probably to have way more people to come. To meet people, I mean, to see people which don't belong there. And then to maybe fear for, you know, keep the houses locked and this and that. And you never know who comes around and walks around. And of course, you know, all the safety and everything that everybody said before. Now, my question to you would be, as council and then the council for development before, so this is the 5th time that I've been here. Why would you entertain something that is not by, it's an RA1 and you want to build an RC whatever, 1 or 2 or whatever it is. And you know that, you know, and then you still, you know, entertain this proposals which are not by code, by your code, the city code that you respect and you created. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Lindsay Machek, to be followed by John Good.
I live in Holly Hill Farms, directly adjacent to the site of this proposal. Approving this plan would create many issues that could be avoided with a density reasonable for the area. Their comparison chart showed inaccurate figures for Cove Creek and included Glen Oaks, an unsimilar RA2 project. Cove Creek consists of 17 units on 8.22 acres, which is a density of 2.06, not 4.21 like the chart falsely claims. The 5.54 density of this project is more than double and almost triple the density of Cove Creek when using correct numbers. It is no surprise that there would be an alarming impact on traffic, more than half of the trees would be cut down, and no open space would remain. This plan has 2 clear goals: meet the bare minimum for every category that benefits the community, and increase the density significantly higher than the existing zoning. The zoning ordinance explicitly states that this kind of PUD submission will be denied by the City of Farmington Hills if it attempts to change the zoning in the process and it fails to improve public health, safety, and welfare, or the sole aim of a proposal is to increase density without applying for the applicable zoning change. According to the master plan, a future land use map is not a zoning map, nor does it change the zoning of any property. Updating this area to flex residential use did not change the zoning from RA1 to RC1. The PUD process also prohibits this type of proposal when it fails to meet any of the 8 possible city objectives. This plan would destroy open space and more than half the trees would be cut down. As a comparison, the Robertson Homes proposal set aside almost 40% of that site as open space. Cove Creek preserved more than half of their site. To achieve 40% to 60% open space like these projects, the setback to the rear perimeter would need to be increased to between 200 and 300 feet. This plan is not compatible with the existing zoning or flex residential use. It defies the master plan by increasing density while eradicating trees and failing to create a deep buffer. The existing neighborhoods would need to create their own buffers against the new project.
This plan would pollute surrounding neighborhoods and create unsafe roads. The towering project is not cohesive with the area and does not foster aesthetic appearance through design. The site is designed for maximum density. Trees would be cut down and then replaced at the bare minimum, and the adjacent historic neighborhoods would be compromised. This does not bring change that is desirable for myself or any of my neighbors. This proposal should have already been denied at the Planning Commission stage of the PUD qualification process. The zoning ordinance is written in a way that deters developers from presenting outlandish plans like this one. I urge you to deny this proposal accordingly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John Good to be followed by Eric, oh boy, Schmidt. And that's the last card I have.
Good evening, Council. My name is John Good. I'm a resident of the city. I wanted to make 3 points. I really appreciate the chance to address you tonight. The first one is the future land use plan. I'm glad many people have mentioned it, and I think flex residential, on principle, is a good place to increase residential units. If the city wants to grow along thoroughfares like 12 Mile, like 13 Mile, makes sense. That being said, I think the neighbors raised a lot of good points. Holly Hill Farms is a pretty notable mid-century modern community that's well thought of throughout the region. The homes in Westgate have large lots and a custom design aesthetic as well. I think that if this development comes back to council, it probably makes sense to adjust density a bit more, especially on the southern building, and maybe adjust that down from 2 to 1 story. I guess another example that I always think about when I think about cluster unit projects and condominiums is a project in North Ann Arbor called, I believe it's Woodbury off Green Road. That has about 116 units on 30 acres, which is about, so for 12 acres, that would be about 45 units. If you get a chance, that design is very well done. It's also very, I would say, congruent with mid-century modern design with a mix of densities and open spaces. So that could be an inspiration as you look at the design. I think it's important to balance the needs of the entire city and the neighborhoods next door. If we want to continue growing, we need to figure out ways to add density, but we need to do it smartly and in a way that's design sensitive and respectful of what is adjacent. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Schmidt is the final comment I have on this for the hearing.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to provide public comment today. I've been to the most recent meeting regarding this in January. My thoughts haven't changed. Primarily concerned about density. The fact that it decreases going down the road, as they mentioned, to show a gradient of it, makes some sense, but their changes proposed do not match what the area should actually be. If this proposal could get down to Cove Creek or less and continue to provide additional green spaces, I think that that would be something more in line with what everybody could agree on and falling in line with the points that Ms. Matich made regarding code enforcement and what has already been available. I back up right to Baptist Manor, and on the property, visible from 13 Mile, there is an abandoned car, an abandoned boat, an abandoned, looks like cube van with a bunch of equipment in it. There is no reason why this should still be there. Mr. Bruce addressed that earlier today, asking what changes or what code enforcement has been taken care of, and it's quite clear that this property is ill-maintained at best, and we deserve better as a community. Additionally, I have spoken with the Schaefers a couple of times, and I've done my best to give them the benefit of the doubt. However, today something was mentioned that I would be very curious to have some actual proof on, and that is continued conversation with neighbors, visiting and discussing tree placement. I'm in contact with all 9 of the residents at the back up to Holly Hill Farms on that street. I don't think a single one of them has mentioned any visits recently, so I would be curious to understand that. And if you're going to misrepresent a fact that can be easily disproven, what else is going to be misrepresented here? I've heard from multiple sources, don't trust the Schaefers. And I took that with a grain of salt because people are going to say things when they've been burnt. But after today's comment, that struck me, and it doesn't take much for my trust to be broken. And that was something that I took quite personally today, especially because Mr. Schaefer gave me a call, and we were talking, and I just got the sense of, we're going to push this through, we're going to get it sold, why don't you just get on board with it? And when I tried to rebuttal, I actually had to threaten to hang up the phone on him because he just wouldn't stop and let me talk. So this is the type of people that we're going to be dealing with for this development. These are people that I don't believe we can trust with this development, and I implore the city council to put an end to this. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm kind of sick of coming here and having to talk about this development when every time it's just barely chipping away, just enough to represent something new. This is no change. This is bull. We deserve better, and I hope that the council takes this opportunity to deny this and give us something better. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was the last request to speak, and so the public hearing is now closed. I do have a procedural question before we take this to council comments and questions, and that is, previously, the Schaefers submitted a request for this item to be again postponed. It was submitted to us about 10 days ago. They were told to explain why they wanted another postponement at this meeting. I did not hear anything in the presentation that was made to us, but that request is still in our council packet. So procedurally, as a council, we need to know if that is something that is still being requested at that time. Could someone please address that?
Thank you. So when we met in front of you at February 10th, we said we were going to do our fast to get everything published as quick as possible. We were able to turn around the plans and submit them on the 21st. So the goal this evening is to receive some type of recommendation and not a table.
Okay, so the request that came to us to again postpone is withdrawn.
Correct. We are no longer in a position where we would have to postpone.
Okay, thank you. So council, that informs us as we ask our questions. Questions, Mayor Pro Tem? No. Mr. Bridges.
Yeah, first question is, if, could we have Charmaine or the planning consultant, the issue regarding the traffic study? Do you have the results of the traffic study? Is that included in our packet? Who responds to the traffic study question regarding traffic? Is that?
Our engineering office typically does the review for the traffic study, but I believe the Schaefers mentioned that they do have their expert here if there are questions.
Their expert. What is the city's opinion regarding the traffic impact of this?
I only have what was included in your packet.
And that is to, what is that? Can you summarize that for me?
Oh, let me look. I'm no traffic engineer.
I know.
Let's see what we can do.
And what are the limitations of what the city traffic analysis says versus what the opponent's paid traffic consultant says? What's the difference?
Oh, I believe Jacob's going to help me out with that.
All right, thank you.
He is the Director of Public Services and oversees the engineering office as well.
Thank you. Question is, Jacob, is the city conducted a traffic study itself on this project?
Good evening. Yes, Jacob Russell, Director of Public Services. Like Jermaine said, also oversees the engineering department, which is in my purview through DPS. But we did receive a traffic impact analysis from the applicant's engineer. We got that after hours on Friday, the 21st. Reviewed that over the week prior, last week, and got a letter put together here as of last Friday. So I don't believe it was completed in time to make it into your packets, but we did get a chance to quickly review that analysis.
What was the results of the review from the city's perspective?
Really just still had some questions. There were some differences between the previous study and what we received on the 24th. So we just had a few more questions for some explanations about things that really changed somewhat materially between the previous study and the one that was just submitted.
So would you say that the city's report wasn't representative of what the reality is, or what's the limitation of the city's report? What's the limitations?
No, it really was, the main thing was there was a big difference between the background information that was provided last month and what we saw recently in the change of the existing conditions specific to Westgate Drive as it's exiting southbound onto 13 Mile Road. There was quite a big difference between what was represented previously and what was represented in the study that we just received last week.
So how you square what the city reviewed and what the proponent has done? Are there any major differences there in regards to analysis of both of those points?
Yeah, so I guess just to clarify the process too, we, as the city, we don't perform an analysis ourselves. What we do is, through the developer, as they're proposing a project, right? They hire a traffic engineer to perform an analysis. They submit it to us and we review that analysis to make sure it meets all the correct codes and requirements, representing both the existing conditions and the future conditions. There's international codes for that that we use and rely on to perform that review.
Does it get to the point regarding what the comments made today regarding traffic? Does the city's analysis or review address the issues regarding what you heard from the public today?
So I guess it boils down to two things in our minds for engineering. One is we had an initial request to make a connection to the west, to the existing traffic signal, which they had done,
right,
which greatly improves the conditions, right? So
that
was done. The other thing is we wanted to maintain the second point of egress and ingress that's needed, would to be lined up with Westgate Drive, which is imperative for reducing conflicts of turning movements coming in and out of both intersections. That's aligned, north-south between the two driveways. That's a good thing. Their study, and we did have some questions still, again, how they derived the information, but it did show there was of course, a slight delay from where they're at now to where they would be proposed in the future when the development's done. It's not a huge delay, but it is a delay that changes from one level of service to a slightly worse level of service. Their study shows the level of service is not good in the existing condition, and it's slightly worse after they build out and the development's completed in the information they've provided.
Comments were made a lot about deceleration lane. Does the report deal with that issue?
It does not, because that's across the street in the existing development with Westgate, which is an existing driveway to 13 Mile Road, or existing access drive coming into 13 Mile Road. So it does not address that off-site improvement to the property to the north.
Is it generally accepted that, when you look at other cities, do they do the same thing we do in regards to this issue? Meaning they yield to the proponent on doing a traffic analysis, and we do an interpretation of that analysis. That's similar to other communities, or that's something we do here in Farmington Hills only?
No, that's how all traffic impact analysis are done. So just like the proponent's design of the interior roads, the water, the sewer, they propose what's going to be done, and we review it to make sure it meets all the criteria and requirements that we have in the city and through other standards to make sure that all that's in line. And we give it a green light or a red light, depending on if it meets all those requirements or not.
You know, I have a concern. I've been on this council for 17 years, and I don't know why we don't demand that an analysis be put into the packet. Why wasn't it in the packet regarding this particular point? I have to ask you these questions about that, and I was not, so that results in me not being prepared because of the fact that I had nothing to read. I had to ask you these questions about these things. And so my point is that we should have that in our packet.
Yes,
and it's a major part of what this project impact because of the density that's going to result and the impact upon the traffic flows that have been incurred there. So,
yep.
I don't. Can you tell me why we didn't have it in the packet?
It wasn't received in time for us to complete a review and get that into your packet in time. And we turned that review around in less than 1 week of when we received the documentation, which is pretty good. actually exceptionally good. But it still was not done, received in time that we could review it and get that information to your packet prior to today's meeting.
Was the proponent's analysis in the packet?
I don't believe so.
Okay, all right, thank you for that, appreciate that, thank you.
Mr. Aldred?
Yeah, just to follow up on that topic of the traffic study, because that was something that was a big issue of concern in the last meeting, which is what is the impact going to be on the traffic. And I believe the report was actually emailed around today to city councilors. I believe city manager, I think that's correct. The city traffic study was actually emailed round to us today, but only to lunchtime today. So I'm not quite sure why it couldn't have been a little earlier. The date on it was February 27th. So on that point, so again, we haven't had much time to review this, but in terms of the specifics to what the issues are, as I understand it, so first of all, I want to make a comment about the link through to Baptist Manor, and this is perhaps more of for the developers, and or I believe that is a really good step in this development. I was very, very concerned with a single road onto 13 Mile, linking through to a road that's got a traffic light. Excellent, great suggestion on how to move this forward. But now we've got a traffic study, and my reading of this traffic study, I'd like to see, okay, great, so how has this improved matters? Problem we have, my brief reading of this traffic study, is that we went from what was previously the change was it was going to go from a C to an F, if you remember,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
That was what was said in the last meeting. This development was going to change that junction coming out of Westgate from a level of service C, level of service F. Clearly, I had a problem with that as a deterioration. My understanding of what this latest review says is it's now saying the current situation is an E in that junction going to an F.
That is correct.
So I think this might be a question for the traffic consultant to answer, and I believe the justification of it is well, it's a small change, all right, from an E to an F as opposed to a C to an F. I guess I would like to hear. So that was, I guess, from your point of view. Thank you for giving us the information. It would have been better to have it sooner if we could have had it sooner to review it properly. But maybe it's a question now for the traffic consultant, if I may.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Before I have Jake speak, I did misspeak a little earlier before consulting with the team. I think we want to do a little bit further of analysis of the deceleration lanes on Westgate Drive. So I'd respectfully request that you consider or entertain the tabling. But I will have Jake come up to address that issue because I know it is very imperative as to why the changes in the study changed from it was a C door or a D door and F to where they are now. So I'll let him speak on that, or at least touch upon that real quickly.
So let me just ask the question again, if I may. So no, to your traffic consultant. Sorry. So my question is we went from a C to an F, now it's an E to an F. I want to just understand why that is, and also why the change. But also, if we have now the connection through to the Detroit Baptist Manor Road with the traffic light, why is it getting worse at all? Why is that? Why are we having significant deterioration?
Mm-hmm. So to touch on the first major point, the difference between the previous traffic study and the current traffic study, it deals with the methodologies that we use to evaluate. I don't want to get into the details on the minutia, but the HCM, which is what we use, is the Highway Capacity Manual. It's the calculations and methodologies for evaluating a 3-leg intersection is different than a 4-leg. So currently it's a 3-leg intersection. If you just put a 4th leg, add no traffic volumes, then the delay will increase for that Westgate approach. So what we did in the revised study is we evaluated it with a 4-lane or a four-leg intersection for background and future conditions in order to provide you an apples-to-apples comparison to show the increase in delay associated with the development.
So is the difference, just to explain again, why was it a C before and an E now?
It was a C before because we modeled it as a 3-leg intersection versus a 4-leg.
3-leg. 3-leg meaning?
3-leg for a T intersection versus like a 4-leg.
I see.
So right now, 13 Mile goes east-west, you have a southbound approach for Westgate. They're proposing to add a northbound approach as their drive that will create a fourth leg to the three-leg intersection.
The current condition has not changed.
No. The intent of it was to show you an apples-to-apples comparison, because if we show it as the previous report had it, you're seeing it evaluated with one methodology, then we're changing two different factors. One, we're changing the methodology that the intersection is evaluated, and then two, we are adding traffic. So we are trying to, with the new study, we're trying to just show the difference by adding the traffic from the development.
Okay, understood.
Can we stay on traffic just for a little bit? Other traffic questions, and as we have those come up, I am wondering if, so I think I heard Mr. Schaefer say that that request to postpone is still on the table? Okay, thank you very much. And then I would perhaps suggest that you want to work with our city traffic engineer to see if this deceleration lane issue that was brought up is something that that is warranted, and if so, is this something that the Schaefers would be willing to pay for as part of the project? I see head nodding. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Okay, other questions, please.
Yes, I have one. Oh, no, go ahead. Okay. Unfortunately, we got the traffic study later today. I didn't have a chance to really go through it in depth. But one of the things that I noticed is that the 13 Mile and Westgate entranceway, you did it two ways. You did AM and PM, and AM is an E, and then PM was an F. That's with the development, correct? With the new development.
That is a background condition. It is
Yeah.
the EAM.
Yeah. Now, there was also a mention in there that some of this was created by the traffic light on 13 Mile and Baptist Manor, the street there. That it was the timing of the traffic light that created some of the backup and issues with traffic.
Did you read the new study?
Yes.
You're seeing that in there? That is most likely referring to the intersection of 13 and Detroit Baptist.
Yes.
Because with the new connection, we evaluated that as well.
Okay. All right. I'm still not quite understanding. The way I read it, it was pre-building of this project, that many of the issues that we're having on that 13 miles, because the way the traffic light is timed, like 110 seconds or something, that creates this long backup, especially during the high traffic hours in the AM and PM. And there was an illusion, or maybe that if the traffic light was changed, the timing was changed, perhaps some of the backup or the difficulties in getting through that intersection might change.
I think that might be a misunderstanding of your reading the report, because I know you guys just got it. So, so what you're referring to is specifically to the traffic signal at Detroit Baptist.
Correct.
It has 110-second cycle length. So what happens is the minor street has to wait. So if you pull up to a red light, most of them had detection. So once you pull up, it detects you, and then within the cycle, it puts a call to give you a green light. So what happens is the longer and the longer the cycle length get, like 120 seconds, you get there, and then you have to wait 60, 80, 100 seconds to receive a green light. So what happens is, in those situations where you have that long of a cycle length, you're almost always going to get a level service E on the minor street. So what I was saying with that part was just referring to that signal, and you can reduce that timing of the cycle length, but then it impacts all the other signals along 13 Mile. Everything's coordinated to get good progression. So that was purely in reference to Detroit Baptist signal.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But on that point, the signal itself, when it services the minor street, it does provide gaps. is because eastbound traffic will have to stop, and then it will provide gaps for the Westgate and the proposed drive, gaps in that eastbound flow in order for them to leave the developments.
As you were reviewing the traffic study, I'm listening to many of the residents in Westgate and some, mainly Westgate, and they all mention that the traffic pattern there today is not optimal. You know, there's some issues with trying to make left turns or whatever. And after the project is built, what was your finding with the traffic study that you did?
So the finding of our
Addition
study
of the project,
is when, with the addition of this development, it will, as Jacob noted, it will increase the delay for Westgate, but it is only by approximately 7 seconds per vehicle, which is generally not going to be noticeable by most people. And we also looked at the queuing for that Westgate Drive. Currently, it's around 50 feet, which is 2 vehicles. With the proposed development, it's going to increase 1 foot. When we do our models, we use sim traffic, which is a micro simulation model. It models every single individual car to get a feel of how the traffic will. So we take an average of many runs or many simulations. So it goes from 48 feet to 49 feet, which is a vehicle queuing is approximately 25 feet for front end of one car to front end of the next car.
Explain queuing. I don't-
Queuing is just, you're stopped at a stop bar, how many people are queued up behind you.
Okay. All right.
So what we saw is currently, and I watched all the data collection that we collected from 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m., which is the peaks that you usually evaluate. And I watched it, and currently you see a maximum of 2 cars queued. Based on our simulations and projections in the future, you will still see 2 cars. So for the neighborhood of the Westgate, it will not be a perceivable difference.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Mellon?
My questions are on other stuff, not
Okay. Anything else on traffic?
Just to, oh,
Just let me make a comment based on my experience. With this development going in, I can almost guarantee that there's not going to be any change as far as problems that you would be really experiencing in that area. And I talk about that because I've lived in the city for 40 years, and I was a police chief for 23 years, and I've seen these developments before. And it's not like a plant that 3,000 employees are in, all of a sudden at 4 o'clock, those cars are all going out. You're just not going to experience it. If there would be a delay at all, you got a traffic division within the police department that can really take care of any of those problems that would develop, make sure that you got a good flow of traffic. You really shouldn't have any problems over there now, because the traffic division of the police department does an excellent job. So I just want to make that comment based on my experience.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Mr. Elder, one more on traffic?
Yeah, one more comment on traffic. I don't think it's unfortunate we haven't been able to have the city's kind of rebuttal and review of your traffic report so that we can have an expert view on the pros and cons of what's been said. I do have one question in terms of at the junction at Westview there, do you see a benefit in terms of limiting it to a right-hand turn only coming out of the development onto 13 Mile to prevent left turns and therefore interacting with the traffic coming out of Westgate? Did that improve safety at that junction?
I mean, anytime you restrict access, anytime you eliminate movements, it improves. However, I think with the addition of the connection to the Baptist Church, I think that eliminated the majority of the concerns with people heading out left. Because once you can go to the signal during the peak hour, most residents of that area are probably going to go to the signal. I know myself,
Well, my point would be why let them even try to turn left if there's a traffic light they could go to. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Bridges?
Yes, I'd just like for the city to respond to the analysis given by the consultant regarding these queuing issues. Does the city has I think it's important because the proponent has a vested interest in this project. He paid for the consultant. We're not calling into question his credibility, but I think it's important for reconciliation purposes that we get a response from the city. Does the city agree with the consultant's analysis. And if there is, if there are disputes or differences, please let us know if you needed to. I think it's important to get your response on that. Can we get that, please?
Could I say one thing before it goes ahead? The city's consultant did give a review of our updated study. I don't know if you guys got that or saw that, but in reference to the queuing, the only comment they had is whether we observed it with our modeling or if we observe it in the field, and we did both. Like I said, for our data collection, we videotape all of it, and they developed they process the data and get us volumes. And so the only comment that came with that is referring to whether we observed it in reality or if we observed our models. And so what we do is we watch the data collection to see what it is, and then we calibrate our models in order to have them reflect the reality of the situation. So we did address that. So that was all I had.
So, again, Jacob, you come up and do that, but at the same time, if there's any outstanding issues that need further research, please let council know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again. No real major issues that we have that are outstanding with the analysis that was done. Like I said, it was just a couple of questions for clarifications about what changed between what was provided previously and what was provided most recently that we reviewed. As the applicant had mentioned, the delays in their analysis are small. The increase to southbound Westgate accessing 13 Mile Road was about a 7-second increase per their report. That looks appropriate based on the information that we have reviewed. We don't have any reason to dispute that. The question that was just answered is actually the standard that we prefer that we go through in these traffic studies, is that we use both physical real-time observation of habits and what we're seeing out in these traffic situations, as well as the modeling that's done to both calibrate that and make sure that it's consistent with what we're seeing in the field and what we're calibrating and using on the model. That's the standard that we like to see. So I appreciate hearing that from the applicant in the queuing situation.
Are there any outstanding issues?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. And do the city have an opinion regarding the necessity for the deceleration lane?
That would actually be a different type of analysis for the north side there with Westgate. How that would be done, and if an A-cell, D-cell taper on either side would be appropriate given the 3-lane configuration and now the driveway across, potentially proposed driveway across the street.
Thank you for your response. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. That's it for traffic. Other topics, please. Ms. Knoll.
Sure, I have a couple questions. So on the map, you removed what I'll call Unit 5. It's the furthest east, and that is now where the larger detention pond is. So obviously, the neighbor to the east, the single family to the east, rather than have a unit back up to their property line, they now have green space and a pond and natural features. But my question has to do more with the rest of the units. From plan, we'll call it Plan 1 to Plan 2, or the old plan to the new plan. So taking the Unit 5 out of it, if we're just comparing the other buildings, the square footage of all the other buildings in Plan 1, comparing that to the square footage, not the number of bedrooms, but the square footage of Plan 2, again, without the Unit 5, what is the difference?
What would you say those townhouses are, 1,800 or 2,000 square feet? I don't have it right in front of me.
I'm trying to figure out, I'll ask you to put the reason behind my question. I'm actually trying to find out how much reduction in density there was for, let's say, the residents that live in Holly Hill that back up to all of these units. So on the original plan, 65445, and then on the new plan, it's 34344 and 4. So, you know, I realize the setback has changed and the number of units has changed, which changes the number of bedrooms. But I'm trying to determine the actual square footage
So the delta
difference.
in the square footage of the units.
Yeah, that would be a question that I have there.
The first unit on the Baptist Manor side is half. So those units are probably about 1,300, 1,400 square feet.
I think they're 12, closer.
1,200 square feet.
Yeah.
Minus 3, so that would be about 3,600 square feet that came out of the first building. Second building, about 1,200 square feet. And then the third building, 1,200 square feet, and then the other ones remain minus 1 unit, so those are minus 1,200 square feet.
I can put together a more detailed analysis on that, but I understand exactly what you're requesting. I just don't want to misstate the numbers.
Yeah. So, you know, one of my concerns is that, and some of the residents mentioned it, but I do appreciate you've increased the setback for those residents that live in Holly Hill. But in the Tabernacle side, you have ranches there.
Yes.
So units, in the new plan, that would be units 3, 4, 3. Those are all ranches.
Correct.
1-story ranches, and they have 2 bedrooms, 3 rooms is how you're classifying them. But units 4, 4, and 4 are the 2-story.
Correct.
And I think that's where I'm having one of a concern. Is just because, again, the residents of Holly Hill, I realize it's a larger buffer, but in the winter, when you have less foliage on the trees, they still are going to have the higher buildings there that they're going to look at. And I really think it would be great if you could continue the 1-story ranches all the way down. Now, do your 1-story ranches have dormers on them? So it's not a full second story, it's just a dormer with like 1 additional bedroom. I know a lot of seniors like that. The grandkids use that room when they come over.
There is no second floor. There's only the main floor, the 2 bedrooms on the main floor, which is the standard 612 pitch on the roof.
Okay.
Which would be your standard pitch. Just to point out, too, in Holly Hills, a lot of those houses from the street, they're tri-levels, so with walkouts, so they are 2-story units that do back up to 2-story units. For most cases, there may be 1 or 2 ranches that do back up to us. We could look at doing more ranches on that end. We kind of want to keep the neighborhoods together and not mix it all up, but have like the Tabernacle side and the Baptist Manor, or the Mulberry Park side. That's what we're trying to preserve, but that is something that we could consider doing. Also, we would build the XLD cell lane on the west gate if that was warranted. We'd be happy to do that. I will note in the traffic report, there has not been a single accident there in the 4 years that they've tracked it. You know, I'm concerned about, you know, the public safety as well. We will install our XLD cell lanes, their XLD cell lanes. If we could even eliminate that access or move it, I'd be happy to do it, but it's not really up to me. It's going to be up to staff. And when we met with staff, they wanted to have, if we were going to put that access out there, would have to line up with the Westgate subdivision, because that is the safest location for that opening. Obviously, there's a lot less traffic. But if we close that off altogether and we went to fire and they were okay with it, then I think we would be amenable to doing that, just to eliminate it altogether and have the one access. But I think, you know, fire wants to have, you know, access to it. And if we didn't have that access, we could do a breakaway gate where fire could use that to come in through that area with a Knox box. So that would be something that we would consider. I think we're less concerned now because we're doing new units along Baptist Manor. So that does have a nice entry into the subdivision. It's not like we're going through Baptist Manor. So if that's something that you would rather see us do, we would put the fire access through to that drive and not have any vehicles come out in front of Westgate. You know, that's
yeah,
we could offer up.
I know I would prefer that, but I know that is going to be a sticking point with the fire department, so I guess that would mean continued discussions on that point. But as far as, I'd still like to see the density reduced a little. I realize that you may have some tri-levels in Holly Hill, which essentially part of their home ends up being 2 stories, but they are going from having nothing in their backyard other than a single family to now multiple homes in their backyard. So I'm just seeing if there's a way to continue to minimize the impact on them. If you go down to 1 story, it's less impact on them. So seeing if there's a way to continue to increase, reduce the density. I actually think when you look at what seniors want or what people want in this community, we have a lot of folks in their 50s and 60s that want to move out of their 2-story homes. They want to get into condos. And when I talk to people that are my age and older, when we're thinking about what we want to downsize into, it's not homes with a lot of stairs. It's not the townhouses. I said this the last meeting, I think there is a need for condos. I think you could reduce your density and actually increase your price and still make money, because I think there's such demand for condos. You showed it on your plan earlier tonight. You showed all those condos and what they're selling for. And people would pay it to have a lovely green buffer. It's actually a very nice piece of property there. And I think if you could reduce the density and do condos, you'd sell them, and you could sell them for more money. And I think it would be more compatible with both neighborhoods, trying to find a way to compromise here and make a win for everyone. But, and it would reduce the density, reduce the traffic, reduce the impact of trees having to come down. I think it would be a better situation here as a way to potentially move forward with this. And I did have one other comment, but I will yield because I know other people do as well, so.
Others? Dr. Bruce?
I'm looking at your reduced density here on the overall plan, and you go from 76 to 69 units. You say that's 12.2% density, but I calculated at 9%. Right? And I mean, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but I think it's important when we're talking about.
I think it's because we have 2-bedroom units and we have 3-bedroom units.
He's talking about the room count, not the density. I'll have to look back at that.
You're talking about the room count?
I'm talking about from 76 to 69 is 9%.
If you took the room count density, because we have 2-bedroom units on the towns with a den. So we don't know if people are getting 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms in those units, depending on when they have the unit built. So we had that range in there.
No, there's no range here. You're talking, there's a separate for 25 to 35 bedrooms, and that's a 9 to 14% reduction. I'm talking about 76 down to 69 is 9%, not 12.2.
Oh, there might have been a 3% error, and if so, I do apologize. I'll have to look back at that.
So I'm just going to then offer my comments about this whole plan. Thank you for bringing it before us. I appreciate it. I think it's a nice-looking plan. I think you've done a lot of great work here, but I don't think this is the place for it. For me, this is an issue of too much density in an RA1 that takes it down to an RC3. And I again think that it really disrupts the whole character of that area. And again, being involved in development in this city for almost 30 years, I've seen a lot of projects and the effects that these projects have. And I've always been very adamant about protecting the residential character of our neighborhoods. And because when people buy a home, they count on certain stability. And it's one thing if you move in next door to an empty piece of property and expecting it not to be built, that's not realistic. But when you change zoning on people, such as through a PUD or through some other type of zoning change, you're kind of changing the rules of the game, I think, midway through, so that all of a sudden what people have depended upon changes dramatically. And so I think this is not going to raise property values in the area. I think it's going to reduce property values in this area, or it has the potential to do that because, again, it's disrupting that whole RA1 character that's to the north, that's to the south, and that's to the east. So I don't think this is an appropriate plan for this area. That's why last time when I voted against tabling, because I really didn't think there was anything that could be done to this plan to make it compatible and to make it palatable to me. So it's like, you know, I appreciate the efforts here in terms of the small changes, and I think they are small changes. So it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig, and I just don't feel there's enough lipstick you can put on this to make it compatible for me to like it. And it's not, again, not the development itself. I think the development project looks great, and I think it'll look great somewhere else. I just don't think this is the area for it in terms of what it does to all the RA1 around, and taking these properties, and I stated before my feeling on these properties. I feel these properties were intentionally left to rot, these homes on these properties, because I still believe that you can sell these properties as RA1 and develop them as RA1. And it's not our job on council to guarantee the absolute best return to a property owner or a developer in terms of a project. It's just not within our purview to do that. So I think these properties could be developed, maybe even if not single-family homes, maybe some lesser density condos, like Ms. Knoll was saying, so that, again, it would be much more compatible to the surrounding area. So I just don't think that this is going to be workable for me on any level. And so I just think that we need to look at something different. But I'm concerned about those empty homes being there. I think that it was, you know, was that intentional so that, again, the property owners could hold out and try to sell this to somebody to develop it and get a better price for their properties? Well, I kind of wonder about that, especially when you look at these properties, how many years they've been there, deteriorating, how much action the city has taken to try to get these properties cleaned up, and the fact that they still look terrible. And I think it's just a way to try to, again, maximize their value by selling it to a developer for a project like this, as opposed to single-family homes. So I think that's the overall issue that I have. And again, nothing against you or your development, anything like that. It's just the location that, for me, doesn't work at all. And so I would not be voting in favor of a motion to approve this.
Thank you. Other comments?
Thank you for your feedback.
Other comments?
Call a question.
Okay, Mr. Aldred.
Just a comment about the overall density as well, just I agree with Councilmember Knoll. I would like to see it less dense. I actually think you've moved a long way. I actually do appreciate the efforts you've made. I think the connection through to the Detroit Baptist Manor is excellent. I think that's a really good, and that for me, I think is a good change. You've put more sidewalks in, you've got more green space in, you've got bigger buffering. I actually don't think they're small changes. I think you've made some substantial changes, which I really appreciate. The density for me is still too high. I know there's comparisons with Cove Creek. I know some residents question that comparison as being miscalculated. I did check with the city, and I think as approved, I think your numbers are correct in terms of what you've quoted.
Yeah, so I actually had the chance to speak to the broker marketing the property, and they had another and for some reason.
Yeah, let me just carry on.
I
I'm
had
good.
a slide that had it,
Yeah,
but
I'm
the
good.
numbers we showed assumed that
Yeah.
phase that was built, not the
Yeah, so
phase that
I believe the density for Cove Creek as built in the area that it's built is as per what you've described there. But that is still less than what you've got in your proposal. And I would, again, agree with Councilmember Knoll that I think directionally, I think you've got in the right direction. Some things I really like about it, but the density is still too high, I think, for what is going to be, again, conducive to the area in which it's sitting. So again, for me, it's close.
I believe that we would be amenable to matching the Cove Creek development. We're not that far off from, you know, where it is now. If that's something that we think needs to be done, I think we would look at that as well as.
And as Councilmember Knoll said, you know, ranches along the back, I think, again, that seems to make sense to me in terms of minimizing the disruption on Holly Hills.
Okay, Ms. Bolaware for a comment?
Yes. Well, I have a slightly different take on this. I love the idea of having multi-generational homes. And what I really like about this project, not the density necessarily, but the fact that they're affordable and obtainable. one of the things that I hear often is the lack of housing. People want, you know, we don't have a lot of vacant land to build on. And this price point that I don't think there's anything like that, not just in Farmington Hills, but surrounding area. And a young family trying to purchase their first home, I think this would be something that would be affordable to them. And if you're a young family, I think a two-story dwelling is what you want as opposed to, as a senior, just a ranch, 1,200 square feet. If I was a family and I'm trying to move in to this price point, I would probably more like it 3 bedrooms with 2 stories. I have not seen exactly what's behind these homes because there's, on the Tabernacle side are the ranches, and on the Mulberry side are the 2 stories. So I like, and the 2 stories is really geared toward younger family with kids who would go into our schools, increase our enrollment, and we need younger people in our community because right now it's more senior-driven, and some of the seniors could perhaps in the Tabernacle portion, you know, sell their homes and make it their homes available to families who are looking for homes. So I like that portion, that part of the project. What I do have concerns about, and hopefully the traffic study will answer some of those, about the safety, and if you put the de-acceleration or acceleration lane, that's probably something that I could live with. And if there's a way to reduce the density in this project, that would be great. But I like the project so far. I know that some of these historic homes, either in Westgate or in Holly Hills, we could never duplicate those in this environment, just be too expensive. And that's not the way that I see us moving in the future. And the fact that in our master plan, that they've talked about flex zoning, you know, for this particular area. So I'd say I like to see the density reduced somewhat. The price point of the homes are favorable for me because if you're a young family and you're trying to find property, you know, within the city, it would be a good thing. And for our seniors to have a nice looking home close by most of the amenities that we have, that would be favorable as well. And it would also tie into a great project that's already there at Baptist Manor because their prices are reasonable. When you look at other senior homes in the area, they're much, much more than, you know, what Baptist Manor requires. And I think that we need more affordable or obtainable homes or places to stay for our seniors. So we can get the project condensed, or not condensed, but yeah, condensed. I would be willing to go for this project.
Right. I think we can, like I said, bring the density down commensurate with Cove Creek. And also, we would like to look at the accesses. If there's things that we can do, we don't have an objection using the Baptist Manor as our primary entrance. It's just getting staff and everybody to agree to that. And we want to have the safest situation out there as possible, for sure.
So I also like the concept of the project. I appreciate what you've done and agree with Mr. Aldred that I think some of the changes you've made are quite major. I also appreciate your listening and continuing to listen to the comments that are brought forward. So maybe taking out that exit directly across from the other subdivision could be a very good thing. I note that in the fire department letter, they did speak to acceleration and deceleration lanes. I think that was point 1 in the fire department letter. So that's something that should be looked at. I think if you could bring down the density to be similar to Cove Creek, that would be a big add. But, I'll tell you what, I grew up 2 blocks from my grandparents, and up until I was 5. And, okay, maybe I'm just fingers crossed, hoping my kids come back to Farmington Hills. But, I'm looking at this as, wouldn't it be amazing for grandparents to live in the 55 and up ranches, and maybe their growing kid families and their grandkids are in the townhouses? Wouldn't that be amazing? And isn't that really what you want in community? And I could see that as, I know Michael's laughing at me, you want your kids to come home too. That could be a really neat thing. And it's in an area that is nearby so many amenities and shopping, and the walkability there is great. So, I appreciate your continuing to take in the feedback and want to continue the refinements. So I would be supportive of a postponement. When would you want it postponed to? And let's really be realistic on this one.
Yeah.
Well, my dad usually doesn't sleep at night if he doesn't get the next available meeting, and then my mom yells at me for him not sleeping, so I'll make sure to temper his expectations a little.
Let's not overpromise on this one.
Yeah, I think that if we had 60 days, 45 to 60 days, that would work. So obviously, you meet, what, twice a month?
Yeah, except in June, July, and August, so ish, unless we need to. I mean, yeah.
How about the first meeting in May?
Okay.
All
All right.
right.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to entertain a motion. The council would postpone this to, what's the first weekend, what's the first meeting in May? May 12th?
Yeah.
I'd like to entertain a motion to postpone this to May 12th. Again, your comments, no other comments can be made, but that's my motion. Okay? I can't make any more comments than that. Support.
Okay, we have motion and support. This is a regular vote. So all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
No.
Okay, we have a 6-1, and we will see you on May 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, and if there's any interested neighbors, we're more than willing to, talk outside and hand out some business cards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a momentary.
It is 10 o'clock. We are going to take a 5-minute stretch break and come back for items.
Let's get the meeting going again.
Okay, as quickly as we can, we'll be right back.
All right.
Let's continue. And we're back.
No, don't say anything.
Next item, item 6, consideration of amendment to Planned Unit Development 2, 2021, including revised site plan 59-5-2022 Villas at Pebble Creek, commonly known as Sarah Fisher, located at 27,412 Mile Road. Good evening again, Ms. Kettler-Schmidt.
Good evening. Charmaine Kettler-Schmaltz, Planning Director. We have this item back before you again. We won't spend a whole lot of time. This is the amendment to PUD Plan 2, 2021, including the revised site plan 59-5-2022. The primary difference between this version and the one that was before you previously is, whoop, I don't know what happened there. The change with the access point for the units. The full plans that were submitted to my office included 2 access drives. You'll note within your packet that we did include the one sheet that indicates the modification to the driveway to narrow that down to just the one boulevard entrance off of Inkster Road with the gated entry exit at 12 Mile, which would be for emergency access. I do have the folks here from Giffords-Webster. There's not a significant change to the layout of the site itself. The access point that was removed has been indicated to be transitioned to an open space area. And then other than that, we have the proponent here to give presentation and make comments. And we did have our public hearing at the last meeting, so this is under unfinished business.
Okay, thank you very much. So shall we hear from the proponent and then council questions, please?
Let me get their presentation pulled up here real quick. Do you want to start?
Hello, I'm again Tim Lochran with Robertson Homes. Good to see you again tonight. I can go through the presentation. It's largely the same as I showed you before. Charmaine mentioned, really the only difference is the removal of that northern driveway. We had worked with staff, had a couple good meetings. They had some really good questions since that, following that council meeting, that I think our traffic study addressed fully. We had a meeting with them, and it seemed like there's support for what we're proposing to do with removing that northern driveway. So I don't know if you want me to go through it again quickly, or you get a lot of head nods, no.
I don't think we need that.
I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, questions?
One,
Mr. Eldred.
one question. So you've removed the entry, and there's now open space there?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on how to use that space? I would think a sidewalk, a walking path connecting from the sidewalk on 13 to that would have some utility. I don't know if that's been considered.
Our thought on that was just to create some plantings, which you can't see here. We certainly would work through that in our final engineering. From a sidewalk perspective, I know there's some grade challenges that we'd have to deal with, so I don't know if we can commit to that. But we see it really as more of a buffer for those 2 homes to have a nice little open space area next to it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? So I had a couple, and they were shared with, the answers were shared with council. One of my questions has to do with the use of the chapel. I appreciate that the preservation of the chapel is a benefit, but my follow-up question, and you did great work with the historic district, but my follow-up question was, so who will benefit from this chapel? And so it really isn't a benefit to the general public at all. It is a benefit maybe to the people who live in this complex. If they get access to it, I don't know how. So I want to understand that a little bit more, because I'm having a hard time seeing the general public benefit. And by the way, I appreciate and understand the infrastructure work that's being done as part of this, but I have a couple of smaller issues, so.
I appreciate that,
Yeah.
Mayor. So the benefit really is that we're saving a piece of history as part of the building, keeping not only the building, but also on the corner, there's the gates, and some of the, there's a couple of posts there that are historic that we're remaining. We're also proposing to put in some signage that kind of says this was the Sarah Fisher Orphanage. So I think the public benefit in our mind is not tearing everything down and starting from scratch. We're trying to keep that history. And it's changed a little bit. You can see with some of the elevations kind of changed the front of it. But we think that that's a good kind of transition to it. So we see it as a public benefit that we're saving that. It's really too small to say, hey, Farmington Hills, this is a new Hawk Center. It's not, it's very, very tiny, but it's enough for us to have, and we're working through the floor plans right now where there'll be a kitchen and an area for cards and that sort of thing, a couple of bathrooms. So it's sized for the 75 units. It will be part of their community center. We don't do that too often, to be honest, so this is kind of I think an advantage that it's there. It's going to be extremely expensive more expensive than if we're just building a new one, to be honest.
Yep.
But it gives us the opportunity to give an amenity we probably wouldn't already have. So yes, from an overall Farmington Hills, we're keeping that. You can see it from the street. That's what I really like about it. It's very prominent from the road. And of course, we're proposing that kind of art park in front of it as well.
Okay, and with the art park, we'd also talked last time about the adult play equipment. Any progress on that?
We can certainly work that out in the PUD. I did discuss it with our team, and it's something we certainly can be interested in. If there's some specifics that you're looking for, I can bring it back to the PUD. I know the next step, if we could get approval tonight, would be to start that PUD agreement. I've done that in other communities, where there's kind of stations from place to place.
Yeah.
And if that's something that you guys are looking for, we can certainly add that to the program.
Okay, that'd be lovely, thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion? Dr. Bruce?
Thank you. I would move the approval of the amendment to the Plan Unit Development 2, 2021, including revised site plan 59-5-2022, Villas at Pebble Creek, Sarah Fisher, located at 27,412 Mile Road, CMR 32533. Love the project. Thank you. I'm so happy to be seeing this come to fruition after so many years of being on this council and seeing proposals come and go, watching those buildings deteriorate over decades. It's just great to finally have a great plan here that
Come a long way.
Yeah, that's going to just really add a lot to our city. So thank you for doing this, and I'm looking forward to see it come to fruition here very soon.
Great.
Support?
Okay, we have motion and support. Any further discussion? This is a regular vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We are so excited about this.
I love hearing that. Thank you very much. I appreciate the
Okay.
support.
Can't wait to see the contract.
Yes.
All righty, thank you very much. That then takes us to public comment. I have 2 cards this evening. Lawrence Cole to be followed by PG.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to me. As is indicated on the note there, I am here to utter a 4-letter word in my subdivision, which is dear. Yesterday, I live on Lincroft Court in Ramble Hills. About 5 o'clock yesterday, on my property and the next door neighbor, there were 20 deer. And I know this has been brought before the council and other city officials before, but the urgency is come to the fore here, and I would submit to the council that these deer, what they're doing is destroying our property, and a coinciding reduction in our property values. And what I mean is, you can't plant flowers. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. You plant flowers in 2 weeks, they're gone. They're devoured. We've got trees up that you have to put fencing around them. Otherwise, the deer will rub their antlers and destroy the bark on the tree, and they'll die. And they used to be cute, but it's not cute anymore. And something needs to be done to reduce the deer population in my subdivision. And I don't doubt that there are deer problems throughout the city. So, what could be done about it? Well, my thought was perhaps if we could have some sort of a culling and heritage park such that the park would be closed for 48 hours. And I know Ann Arbor had some culling operation, and I think they did that at Kensington Park. But if we continue to let this deer population proliferate, it's destroying the properties. Again, you can't plant flowers. They eat up the evergreens. They devour everything. So, I don't know how much council has given thought to this over the years, but I know you've heard about it. But some sort of action has to be taken, and I would appreciate it if the council could somehow consider bringing in, professional marksmen in a place like Heritage Park, where you don't have, people living in there, and if ample notice was given, hey, ladies and gentlemen, stay out of the park for 48 hours so we can cull the population.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Ramble Hills population and other subdivisions, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. So our March 24th study session, 6 PM, and we're going to have it in this room, is going to be dedicated to the urban deer herd. So we have been working on this, and so we are to the point where we're ready to have a council conversation about it. I hear you, I hear you. We'll see you on the 24th. PG, you're up, please. Good evening.
Good evening to the council. I'm sure you guys missed me and my husband, but we were in another area fighting for another good cause. I want to first of all thank Councilman Randy Bruce. When we were here trying to stop Sheets from going into a bad location, I just want to thank you for how you listened to the residents, what you said, and you showed courage for your convictions, and your comments to me were just constant. You said it, and that was it. I didn't hear any wavering or I'm not sure, so I just want to thank you for that. I also want to give a shout out to the newly selected police chief. I think that the city administrator or city manager, I'm sorry, Farmington Hills has a city manager, that the city manager made a great choice. And then Mayor Pro Tem, because he hired a lot of these guys way back in the day. I'm looking forward to that continued relationship with the community. One thing I can say about Chief King is that he realized that the citizens were at the top of the organizational chart, and I miss him already, but there comes a time where you have to just move on. And then the last thing I wanted to say, back in December, they had a program, Craft with the Cop, and the cops were at the Hawk Center. I was amazed at how many kids and how many cops showed up to just sit at the table and to just do arts and crafts. And I didn't bring the picture, but I hope I can be at the next council meeting. I know Officer Bree did this picture because they know I'm obsessed with nutcrackers. And these two little girls, and I put their names on the back along with Officer Bree, did to be on high alert. They were still listening to the radio, and you'd see them every now and then making sure they heard what was coming across the radio. But just to see them take that moment out of their schedule to give it to those kids, it was absolutely incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney report.
You have my report. I have nothing to add or change to it.
Thank you. And there being no further business to come before us, we are adjourned. Good night, Farmington Hills.
Good job, man.